Imagine this. You wake up on a Monday morning. Your phone is already buzzing with emails, deadlines, and unanswered messages. The coffee hasn't even finished brewing, but your heart is already racing. Thoughts of unfinished projects, strained relationships, and tomorrow's uncertainties crowd your mind. In today's world, it seems like worry has become our constant companion. From the pressure to succeed at work, to the struggle of maintaining meaningful relationships, to the endless stream of news that makes us question the future, anxiety feels like the air we breathe. Let me ask you, have you ever felt exhausted from trying to control everything? Have you ever caught yourself believing that if you could just hold on tighter, just manage every detail, life would finally calm down? And yet, the more you try, the heavier it feels. This video is not just another talk. It is an invitation, a 4-hour journey into the heart of Zen wisdom. Over the course of this time, we will explore 7 timeless secrets passed down through Zen teachings. These secrets are not abstract philosophies. They are living practices that show us how to release anxiety and live in harmony with the natural flow of life. Here's my invitation to you. Before we begin, leave a comment sharing where you are watching from. Are you in New York, California, or perhaps somewhere across the ocean? This channel has become a community of seekers from all around the world, and your voice matters here. The Buddha once taught in the Dhammapada, the mind is the source of all suffering, but also the key to peace. These words remind us that our struggles are not enemies to defeat, but teachers pointing us back to the mind itself. To make this real, let me tell you about Anna. Anna lives in Chicago. She works as an office administrator. To her colleagues, she looks like she has everything under control, organized, reliable, efficient. But inside, Anna is constantly battling a storm. She lies awake at night worrying about the future. Will she lose her job in the next round of layoffs? Will she ever find the right partner? Her body began to carry the weight of this anxiety. Frequent headaches, fatigue, even chest pains became part of her life. Then, one day, a friend invited Anna to a Zen meditation group. At first, she thought, I don't have time for this. But something inside her was desperate for relief. In that quiet space, as she learned to breathe and simply notice her thoughts without fighting them, something shifted. For the first time, she realized she didn't have to control everything. She could simply be present. Slowly, Anna's life began to change. She still had challenges, but they no longer defined her. She learned to live one breath at a time. This story is not about Anna alone. It could be about you, about me, about anyone who has ever carried the weight of what if. Zen reminds us that peace is not found in controlling the storm, but in realizing the storm was never who we were. So, in this introduction, I invite you to take a breath. Feel the air entering your lungs, grounding you here and now. As we walk together through these next hours, remember, this is not a race. It is not a lecture to memorize. It is a journey, one that you and I will take step by step. Think for a moment about the pace of modern life. We live in an age of constant connection. Smartphones keep us tethered to work long after we've left the office. Social media shows us carefully curated images of other people's lives, and we wonder if we are falling behind. News headlines flash across screens, stirring fear about everything from the economy to the environment. No wonder so many of us lie awake at night with racing thoughts. But here is the truth. Worry doesn't protect us. Control doesn't save us. Instead, they bind us more tightly to our suffering. Zen invites us to loosen our grip, not because life is easy, but because when we release the illusion of control, we finally taste freedom. Picture Yosemite Valley at sunrise. The granite cliffs stand tall, but the light shifts gently across them. Rivers carve their way through stone, not by force, but by patience. This is the way of nature. This is the way of Zen. To live in harmony with the flow, not in constant battle against it. In the next 4 hours, we will explore 7 secrets of Zen practice that help us do exactly this. You will learn how to see your mind as a garden, to cultivate seeds of peace instead of weeds of worry. You will discover the strength of flexibility, the beauty of living in the present, and the wisdom of letting go. Each secret will be more than words. It will be paired with real-life stories, scientific insights, and simple practices you can bring into your daily life. And here's something important. This is not about perfection. You don't need to become a monk, shave your head, or move to a mountain monastery. Zen is not about escape. It is about presence. Wherever you are in your kitchen, on your commute, or at your desk, Zen is already here, waiting for you. Let's return to Anna's story for a moment. When she first began to meditate, she felt restless. Her thoughts seemed louder than ever. She wondered, am I doing this wrong? But her teacher gently reminded her, the point is not to stop the thoughts. The point is to stop letting them control you. That simple shift changed everything. Soon, Anna noticed that her body began to heal. The tension in her shoulders softened. She started sleeping through the night again. At work, she found herself able to respond to challenges with calm rather than panic. She realized that the storm outside no longer dictated the weather within. Stories like Anna's are why I believe this journey matters. You don't need to escape life to find peace. You simply need to learn how to meet life as it is, moment by moment. Before we dive deeper, I want to ask you again, where are you joining us from? Type it in the comments right now. Are you in New York, California, Texas, or maybe across the world in London or Sydney? This practice is not bound by geography. It is a universal human journey. And by sharing where you are, you remind yourself and others that we are walking this path together. The opening minutes of this journey are about creating space. Space to breathe. Space to listen. Space to let the wisdom of centuries flow into the busyness of our modern lives. So let us take one breath together right now. Inhale deeply, hold, and exhale slowly. This is the beginning. As we prepare to enter the heart of this 4-hour journey, let us remember something essential. Peace is not a distant destination. It is already within you, waiting to be uncovered. Anxiety is like clouds passing across the sky of your mind. But the sky itself, the vast, open awareness, remains untouched. Think of a lotus blooming in a pond. Its roots may grow in the mud, but its petals open toward the sunday. In the same way, even when your life feels heavy with uncertainty, there is a part of you that can remain open, light, and free. Zen offers us tools to return to this inner freedom. The 7 secrets we will explore together are like stepping stones across a river. Each one will help you cross from anxiety to peace, from control to flow, from fear to freedom. Science now echoes what the Buddha taught centuries ago. Harvard researchers have shown that mindfulness can reduce cortisol, the stress hormone that fuels anxiety. Yale studies reveal that presence in the moment changes the brain's pathways for focus and calm. What ancient teachers called liberation, modern science calls neuroplasticity. 2 languages pointing to the same truth: the mind can be trained to rest in peace. In this video, we will blend these perspectives, ancient wisdom and modern science, so you not only hear inspiring words, but also understand the practical, proven impact of these teachings. Now, let's imagine together. Imagine sitting at the edge of the Pacific Ocean in California. The waves rise and fall, rise and fall. No wave tries to hold itself in place. No wave fears its end. Each one comes and goes in harmony with the sea. This is the rhythm of life. And this rhythm can become your rhythm too. As we step forward, I encourage you to make this more than just listening. Try the practices, even if only for a few minutes each day. Reflect on the questions I will ask. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let this not be a monologue, but a dialogue between us. Because together, we are building something powerful, a community of presence, of compassion, of wisdom. And every time you take one mindful breath, you are not only healing yourself, you are adding peace to the world around you. So, let us begin. 7 Zen Secrets for Releasing Anxiety and Living in Harmony with the Natural Flow of Life. Each one a seed, each one a practice, each one a gift waiting to unfold. Take another slow breath. Inhale peace. Exhale tension. This is your invitation. This is your journey. And it begins right now. The mind as a garden. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine walking into a garden. The air is fresh, carrying the fragrance of earth and blooming flowers. You hear birdsong, the rustling of leaves, and the gentle hum of life unfolding. In this garden, every seed planted has the potential to grow into something, whether it is nourishing fruit, fragrant blossoms, or invasive weeds. Your mind is exactly like this garden. Every thought you entertain is a seed. Some thoughts carry peace, compassion, and clarity. Others carry fear, anger, and doubt. And, just like in a real garden, whatever you water, whatever you nurture, will grow stronger. The Buddha expressed this truth in the Dhammapada. Mind precedes all things. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-made. What we think shapes what we become. If we plant seeds of negativity day after day, we should not be surprised when our lives are filled with weeds. If we cultivate seeds of kindness and gratitude, then over time, peace will bloom naturally. Let me share the story of John. John lives in Texas and runs a small business. When the economy began to shift, he was consumed with fear of bankruptcy. Every morning he woke up with dread, imagining failure. He projected his anxiety onto his employees, becoming impatient and harsh. The office atmosphere grew toxic, and soon the business began to decline even faster. One evening, while scrolling online, John stumbled upon a video about mindfulness. Something about the idea that thoughts are seeds struck him deeply. He began experimenting. Each morning, instead of rehearsing fears of collapse, he chose to plant one seed of optimism. He told himself, "Today I will lead with calm. Today I will water hope." Slowly, his presence shifted. Employees noticed the difference. The office atmosphere softened, collaboration increased, and over time, the business began to recover. John's story illustrates a simple but profound truth. We cannot always control circumstances, but we can always choose which seeds we water in our minds. Modern science supports this ancient wisdom. Research at Harvard Medical School has shown that mindfulness practice reduces cortisol levels, the primary hormone associated with stress. Lower cortisol means a calmer nervous system, a clearer mind, and a healthier body. In other words, by tending the garden of the mind, we literally change the chemistry of our bodies. Now, how do we apply this practically? I invite you to try what I call the mind garden practice. Each day, take a notebook. Write down 3 positive thoughts that have appeared in your mind. They might be simple: gratitude for your morning coffee, a kind word from a friend, or even the beauty of a sunset. Then, write down 3 negative thoughts that crossed your mind. Perhaps self-criticism, fear about the future, or anger at someone. When you see them written side by side, you begin to notice their weight. Which seeds bring lightness? Which bring heaviness? Over time, you learn to stop watering the weeds. You choose to water gratitude instead of resentment, compassion instead of judgment, trust instead of fear. This is not about suppressing negative thoughts. It's about seeing clearly which seeds you want to nurture. Just as a gardener doesn't curse the weeds but simply pulls them out and plants something better, we too can redirect our energy with patience and care. So, let me ask you, what seeds are you planting today? Share in the comments below. Perhaps you planted seeds of patience with your children, seeds of courage at work, or seeds of forgiveness toward yourself. By naming them, you water them even more. To deepen this image, let's think of the weeds. Weeds grow quickly, often without any effort from us. They thrive in neglect. Negative thoughts work the same way. If left unchecked, they multiply. Fear breeds more fear. Anger sparks more anger. But here is the encouraging truth. Just as weeds can be pulled, negative thoughts can be transformed. The Buddha taught that when an unwholesome thought arises, we can meet it with mindfulness and replace it with its opposite. Anger can be replaced with compassion, greed with generosity, and worry with trust. Consider the practice of loving kindness, known as metta. When a weed of irritation sprouts in your mind, you can pause, breathe, and silently repeat, "May I be peaceful, may they be peaceful." This simple act is like planting flowers in the soil where thorns once grew. Let's return to John for a moment. Even after his shift toward optimism, weeds still appeared. He still had days when fear of failure gripped him. But instead of feeding those fears with constant attention, he began practicing redirection. Whenever a thought of collapse arose, he deliberately reminded himself of one thing his company was doing right. In time, those reminders created new pathways in his brain, making hope his default setting rather than despair. Neuroscientists call this process neuroplasticity. Every time we think a thought, we strengthen a neural pathway. The more we practice gratitude, the easier gratitude becomes. The more we indulge worry, the stronger worry grows. Our brains are literally gardens of connections, shaped by the seeds we choose to water. Now, let's bring this home with a practice you can try today. I call it the 3 seeds ritual. Each morning, before you check your phone, pause and plant 3 intentional seeds. Whisper to yourself, "Today I plant the seed of patience. Today I plant the seed of kindness. Today I plant the seed of courage." As you move through the day, notice when these seeds sprout. Perhaps patience shows up when you're stuck in traffic. Kindness emerges when you greet a stranger. Courage appears when you face a difficult task. By naming and planting seeds in advance, you guide your mind to grow the garden you desire. Another story may help here. Emily, a mother from Ohio, once shared how she was overwhelmed by her children's constant fighting. She admitted she had been watering the seeds of frustration daily. Every time the kids argued, she told herself, "They never listen. I can't handle this." Those thoughts grew into bitterness, which her children sensed, creating even more conflict. One evening, Emily tried the 3 seeds ritual. She planted patience, joy, and forgiveness. The very next morning, when the kids began bickering, she felt the old weed of anger rising. But then she remembered her seeds. She took a breath and said softly, "I forgive this moment." Something shifted. Her tone softened, and the children responded differently. Over weeks, their home began to feel less like a battlefield and more like a place of growth. This is the miracle of tending the mind's garden. Small, consistent choices reshape the landscape of our lives. So let me guide you in a short reflection right now. Close your eyes if you can. Imagine your mind as a wide, fertile garden. Notice the weeds' thoughts of fear, judgment, or doubt. See them clearly, without shame. Now, imagine gently pulling one weed out of the soil. In its place, plant a seed of peace. Water it with your breath. See it sprouting, reaching for the light. This is the practice of transformation. And here is your call to action. Share in the comments what seed you planted today. Did you plant gratitude, love, patience, or something else? By speaking it, you water it further. There's another angle to this metaphor. A wise gardener does not expect instant results. Seeds take time to germinate. Some sprout quickly, others take weeks or even months. In the same way, the seeds of positive thoughts and mindful habits may not transform your life overnight. But with consistent care, change becomes inevitable. This is why patience is a central quality in Zen practice. The Buddha often compared spiritual growth to the growth of plants, slow, steady, nourished by daily attention. Just as a farmer trusts the unseen work beneath the soil, we too must trust the unseen work happening in our minds when we practice mindfulness and kindness. Consider a study from the University of Wisconsin, led by Dr. Richard Davidson, a neuroscientist who has studied Buddhist monks for decades. He found that long-term meditators actually displayed measurable changes in the structure of their brains. Areas linked to compassion and focus grew stronger, while areas linked to fear diminished. What this shows is that our inner gardens, tended with care, change the very ground of our being. But let's make this more practical. I'd like to offer you another exercise called the daily watering. Each evening, before you go to bed, recall 3 moments when you watered positive seeds during the day. They can be small, choosing patience at the grocery store, offering a smile to a colleague, or taking one mindful breath instead of snapping in frustration. By reviewing these moments, you strengthen the roots of peace in your mind. And when you notice weeds moments you watered anger, worry, or fear, don't scold yourself. Simply note, "Ah, I watered that weed today." Awareness itself is like sunlight. Once the weed is seen, it loses some of its grip. Tomorrow, you will have another chance to plant something new. Let's listen to another story, this time about a young man named Carlos from California. Carlos was a college student drowning in anxiety about grades, career, and social expectations. He often said to himself, "I'm not enough, I'm failing, I'll never succeed." These thoughts consumed him, leaving him paralyzed. A mentor introduced Carlos to the garden metaphor. At first, he resisted. "How can writing down thoughts change my future?" he asked. But when he finally tried, he discovered just how many weeds he was watering daily. The act of writing revealed patterns he hadn't noticed before. With practice, he began intentionally planting seeds of encouragement. "I am learning, I am growing, I am capable." Within months, not only did his grades improve, but his relationships deepened. His confidence bloomed like a garden in spring. This is the hidden power of awareness. It reveals the soil of the mind and shows us what we are unconsciously feeding. Now let's pause together. Place your hand gently on your heart. Take one slow, deep breath. Ask yourself, what seed am I watering most often these days? Don't judge the answer. Just notice. That awareness alone is the beginning of transformation. Zen practice is about simplicity. A garden doesn't need 1,000 exotic plants to be beautiful. Often, it is the quiet presence of a few flowers, tended with love, that brings the most joy. In your own mind, it may be enough to choose one seed, gratitude, compassion, or patience, and devote yourself to watering it daily. Over time, that one seed can transform the entire landscape of your life. And here is a gentle reminder: comparison is another weed. Don't compare your inner garden to someone else's. Some people appear to live in lush meadows, but you don't see the work it took to get there. Others may struggle with barren soil, but even one green sprout is a victory. The garden of your mind is unique, and your task is simply to tend it with care. So I ask you once more, what will you plant today? Share it in the comments. Let's build a field of positive seeds together, across states and nations, across languages and backgrounds. Imagine thousands of viewers planting seeds of peace simultaneously. What a beautiful global garden that would be. One of the greatest mistakes many people make is believing that thoughts are facts. But thoughts are not facts. They are only seeds, potential realities that may or may not grow. Just because a thought arises does not mean it defines you. The Buddha compared the mind to a painter's brush. Every stroke creates an image, but the artist can always choose a new canvas. Take the example of Sarah, a nurse in New York. During the pandemic, she was overwhelmed by fear. Every day she thought, "I can't handle this, I will break." These thoughts became so loud that she considered leaving her profession. Then she encountered the teaching of mental seeds. She realized, if I keep watering despair, it will choke every flower in my heart. So she began a simple practice. Every night, before sleeping, she wrote down one seed of resilience she had planted that day, whether it was offering a comforting word to a patient, sharing a laugh with a colleague, or simply making it through her shift. Within weeks, the weeds of despair loosened their grip, and the flowers of courage began to bloom again. This is why awareness is everything. Without awareness, weeds multiply in secret. With awareness, we see them, name them, and choose differently. Modern psychology agrees. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective treatments for anxiety and depression, is based on the principle that thoughts are not facts. Therapists teach clients to identify unhelpful thoughts, challenge them, and replace them with healthier alternatives. In Buddhist terms, this is the practice of pulling weeds and planting new seeds. Another study from Stanford University discovered that when participants practiced mindfulness for just 8 weeks, not only did their stress levels decrease, but their ability to regulate emotions increased significantly. Imagine that, in less than 2 months, the soil of the mind can begin to change. Let's add another layer to our practice. This one is called seed journaling. Each morning, write a page divided into 2 sections: seeds I want to plant and weeds I want to pull. Under seeds, write qualities you wish to nurture, maybe patience, creativity, or self-acceptance. Under weeds, list habits of thought you want to release, like self-doubt, perfectionism, or resentment. This practice is powerful because it transforms vague feelings into clear intentions. One viewer once wrote to me after trying seed journaling for a month. She said, I didn't realize how much energy I gave to weeds until I saw them on paper. But once I named them, they began to lose their power. That is the gift of clarity. To make this more experiential, let's pause again for a short visualization. Close your eyes, if it's safe to do so. Picture yourself holding a basket of seeds. Each seed represents a thought or intention. Choose 3 seeds to plant today. Perhaps you choose peace, kindness, and trust. Now imagine kneeling in the soil of your mind, pressing those seeds gently into the earth and watering them with your breath. Feel the quiet joy of knowing you have chosen wisely. Here is your invitation. Write in the comments which 3 seeds you planted during this visualization. When you share, you are not only declaring your choice, you are inspiring others to do the same. Together, our gardens grow. The imagery of the garden also teaches us about seasons. There will be winters when nothing seems to grow. Times when the soil feels barren, when positive thoughts feel forced, when weeds appear stronger than flowers. Do not despair. Every garden has its cycles. Even when growth is not visible, the roots are strengthening beneath the surface. This is where faith comes in. Faith not in blind belief, but in the natural rhythm of life. Just as spring always follows winter, peace will return if you keep tending the soil. The Buddha said, "Drop by drop, the water jar is filled." In the same way, drop by drop, thought by thought, the jar of your mind is filled with either suffering or peace. The choice is yours. So, as we close this segment of the garden teaching, I want to leave you with a question. If your mind is a garden, what do you want it to look like in 1 year? Imagine the colors, the scents, the feeling of walking through it. Then remember, every seed you plant today shapes that vision. Let us now explore the hidden dimension of gardening, intention. A gardener does not simply scatter seeds randomly and hope for the best. They choose carefully what to plant. Tomatoes in one corner, roses in another, herbs along the path. In the same way, we must be intentional about which thoughts and values we cultivate. Intention is the sunlight of the mind. Without it, even good seeds may struggle to grow. With it, even fragile sprouts can flourish. The Buddha taught about right intention as part of the Noble Eightfold Path, the intention of harmlessness, of renunciation, of compassion. These intentions act like guiding stars, showing us where to place our energy. Consider the story of Linda, a teacher from Florida. For years, she tried to control her classroom with strict rules. She thought discipline meant rigidity. But this only planted seeds of resistance in her students. Every day felt like a battle. One summer, Linda attended a mindfulness workshop. She learned about setting the intention to water seeds of curiosity and kindness in her classroom. When she returned to school, she tried a new approach. Each morning, before her students arrived, she sat quietly at her desk and whispered, "May I teach with patience. May I listen with compassion. May I create a space where learning feels joyful." The difference was profound. The children sensed her shift. Instead of fear, they felt trust. Instead of rebellion, they began to participate. Linda discovered that her intention was the soil in which every seed of her classroom grew. Science validates this as well. Researchers at Stanford have found that when teachers set positive intentions before class, such as focusing on empathy, the overall behavior and performance of students improves dramatically. What we carry in our minds silently shapes the environment around us. This is why your personal garden is never just personal. The seeds you water do not stay confined inside you. They radiate outward into your family, your workplace, your community. If you water seeds of fear, others around you feel it. If you water seeds of peace, you become a refuge for others. Here's a practice you might try: the morning planting ritual. Before starting your day, close your eyes and imagine meeting 3 people: a colleague, a family member, and a stranger. For each one, plant a seed of intention. Say quietly, "Today I will meet them with kindness. Today I will meet them with patience. Today I will meet them with respect." Throughout your day, watch how these intentions blossom in real interactions. Now let's widen our perspective. Think of the entire planet as a vast, interconnected garden. Each human being is tending their own plot of soil. The seeds we water collectively shape the world we live in. Wars and violence are weeds watered by generations of anger and greed. Peace movements, acts of compassion, and social justice are flowers watered by seeds of wisdom and love. This means that tending your personal garden is not selfish. It is one of the most generous acts you can do. By cultivating peace within, you contribute to the great global garden of humanity. A viewer once shared with me how this perspective changed his life. Michael, a musician from Nashville, used to drown in self-doubt before every performance. His inner garden was filled with weeds of insecurity. "I'll make mistakes. I'm not good enough." But when he realized that his thoughts affected not only himself, but also his audience, he decided to plant seeds of presence instead. Before each concert, he whispered, "May my music bring peace. May my notes water joy in others." Audiences began to feel the shift. His performances transformed from tense displays into flowing, heartfelt offerings. This is the ripple effect of the mind's garden. So, here is your reflection for today. What 3 seeds will you plant not only for yourself, but for the world? Write them down. Share them in the comments. Let us grow a collective garden of wisdom together. Another truth about gardens is that they need protection. Even the healthiest soil and the strongest seeds can be damaged if we allow pests to run wild. In the same way, our minds must be guarded against toxic influences, negative media, destructive relationships, and environments that constantly water fear. This doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means being wise about what you let enter your garden. The Buddha spoke of sense doors: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Whatever passes through these doors becomes food for your consciousness. If you constantly feed on anger-filled news or toxic conversations, weeds will thrive. If you feed on inspiring stories, uplifting music, and acts of kindness, your flowers will bloom. Think of David, a manager from Boston. He prided himself on being in control of every detail at work. But his constant micromanagement planted seeds of resentment in his team. Meetings were filled with tension. Turnover rates increased. David's inner weeds were spilling into the gardens of others. Through a leadership program that incorporated Zen principles, David learned the practice of the circle of influence. Instead of focusing on what he could not control, he chose to plant seeds of trust. Each week, he wrote down 3 things he would release control over and 3 places he would plant trust. Slowly, the weeds of fear shrank, and his team began to flourish. Productivity rose, but more importantly, harmony returned. Science again confirms this wisdom. A study from MIT found that teams built on mutual trust outperform those driven by fear or rigid control. In other words, the soil of trust nourishes stronger collective gardens. Here's a practice you can try: garden gates. At the start of each day, ask yourself, what will I allow through my gates today? Perhaps you choose to let in gratitude, beauty, and learning. And ask, What will I guard against? Maybe gossip, cynicism, or unnecessary worry. By setting these gates, you protect the health of your inner soil. Let's also talk about nourishment. A garden needs water and sunlight. The mind needs mindfulness and compassion. Without mindfulness, we forget to notice what we're watering. Without compassion, we treat ourselves harshly when weeds appear. Together, mindfulness and compassion act as rain and sun, bringing balance and life. Sophia, an artist from Los Angeles, learned this lesson deeply. She was terrified of changing her style, convinced her audience would reject her. These weeds of fear stifled her creativity. But when she began practicing compassion toward herself, reminding herself that growth requires change, she allowed her garden to expand. She let go of old patterns, and new blossoms of creativity emerged. Today, her art not only flourishes but inspires others who struggle with fear of change. This brings us to another essential principle: emptiness. In Zen, it is said that a cup is most useful when it is empty. Likewise, a garden sometimes requires clearing space. If the soil is overcrowded, new seeds cannot grow. We must be willing to pull out even familiar plants if they no longer serve the garden's growth. Ask yourself, what do I need to clear from my mental garden today? Maybe it's an outdated belief, a fear you've carried too long, or a self-image that no longer fits. By clearing space, you make room for new growth. Here is a final reflection for this part. Walk through your mental garden as if you were a visitor. What do you see? What flowers bring you joy? What weeds need gentle pulling? What new seeds are waiting to be planted? This daily walk is a practice in itself, a way of staying close to the living reality of your mind. And as always, I invite you, share in the comments what you discovered on your walk today. Did you notice weeds of doubt, flowers of gratitude, seeds of hope? By naming them, you join a community of gardeners cultivating peace together. Let us bring all of these lessons together with one last story. Ethan, a young software engineer from San Francisco, often joked that his brain was like a junkyard of worries. He spent his nights replaying mistakes, predicting failures, and comparing himself to colleagues. His inner weeds were thick, and he felt suffocated. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, he stumbled upon a Zen talk online. The teacher said, "The mind is a garden. If you don't tend it, weeds will take over. But even one flower can change the whole landscape." Ethan decided to test this. He began planting one seed a day. On Monday, gratitude. On Tuesday, patience. On Wednesday, trust. At first, the weeds still seemed stronger. But after weeks, he noticed small blossoms calm during meetings, laughter with friends, energy returning. His colleagues even commented, "You seem lighter these days." Ethan realized the truth. He didn't need to eradicate every weed. He only needed to keep planting flowers, and over time, the garden transformed. This is the essence of Zen practice. It is not about perfection. It is about persistence. A gardener does not despair when weeds appear. They simply return each day, tend the soil, and keep planting. Science offers us further encouragement. A long-term study from the University of Pennsylvania followed participants who practiced gratitude journaling for 3 months. Results showed not only a significant reduction in stress, but also lasting improvements in overall happiness, even 6 months after the practice ended. Like seeds that continue to bear fruit, the benefits of mindful planting extend far beyond the moment. So how do we close this teaching on the mind as a garden? With 3 simple steps. 1. Notice the seeds. Become aware of every thought as a potential seed. Ask, do I want this to grow? 2. Choose what to water. Direct your energy toward the seeds of peace, gratitude, and compassion. Don't waste your water on weeds. 3. Tend the garden daily. Remember, small, consistent actions matter more than occasional big efforts. Drop by drop, the jar is filled. Let's practice one more time together. Take a slow breath in. As you inhale, imagine watering the seed of peace within you. As you exhale, imagine releasing the weeds of fear. Do this 3 times. Feel how even a few breaths can change the quality of your inner garden. And now, a call to action. Comment below with one seed you will commit to watering this week. Maybe it's kindness. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's simply presence. Your words may inspire someone else to plant the same. Remember, the mind is the chief of all things. Thoughts are seeds. Plant wisely, water consistently, and trust the process. This concludes part 2 of our journey. We have seen how the mind is like a garden, how seeds of thought shape our inner landscape, how science confirms the power of mindful planting, and how real people have transformed their lives through this practice. In the next section, we will explore another secret of Zen, the power of flexibility. Just as a tree survives storms by bending rather than breaking, we too can discover true strength in adaptability. Take one last breath here. Smile gently at the garden within you. And when you are ready, let's step into part 3. Flexibility, true strength, lies in adaptability. Imagine a storm sweeping across a forest. The mighty oak stands tall, rigid, unwilling to bend. When the wind grows fierce, its branches snap, and sometimes the entire trunk cracks. Now look at the bamboo. It bends with the wind, sways with the storm, and when the sky clears, it still stands, rooted and alive. This is the lesson of flexibility. Strength is not hardness. Strength is resilience. The Buddha once said, "Water does not resist, it flows, and when confronted with obstacles, it simply finds another path." Flexibility is the true power that allows us to endure life's storms without breaking. Consider Linda, a teacher in Florida. She entered the classroom each day, determined to control every detail. She believed that if she enforced enough rules, learning would flourish. But instead, the students rebelled. Every day felt like a fight. Linda was exhausted, stressed, and questioning her career. Then she encountered Zen teachings about the bamboo. She realized her rigidity was creating resistance. So she tried a new approach. Instead of demanding silence, she invited discussion. Instead of punishing mistakes, she treated them as learning opportunities. Slowly, the classroom shifted. The children felt respected, and harmony began to bloom. Linda discovered what the bamboo had always known: flexibility is strength. Modern science affirms this. Psychologists at Stanford University have studied what they call psychological flexibility. It is the ability to adapt when circumstances change, to hold values steady while adjusting strategies. Research shows that people with greater psychological flexibility experience less stress, better mental health, and stronger relationships. In fact, flexibility is one of the strongest predictors of resilience in both children and adults. But how do we practice flexibility in daily life? Let me offer a simple exercise called the Bamboo Challenge. For 1 week, whenever you encounter difficulty, pause and ask yourself, how can I bend here rather than break? Maybe traffic ruins your plans. Can you see it as a chance to listen to music or breathe deeply? Maybe a colleague criticizes you. Can you take the useful part of the feedback and let go of the sting? Flexibility is not weakness. It is wisdom in motion. Let's also consider how inflexibility shows up in relationships. Many arguments are fueled not by the issue itself, but by our refusal to bend. I must be right, you must be wrong. This rigid mindset creates distance. But when we practice flexibility, listening, adjusting, compromising, we often discover solutions that honor both sides. Emily, a mother from Ohio, shared how this practice saved her marriage. She and her husband fought constantly about household responsibilities. Both clung to rigid expectations. Then, Emily decided to try the bamboo challenge. One evening, instead of insisting on her way, she asked, "What would flexibility look like for both of us?" That small question opened the door to cooperation. Over time, their home became less of a battlefield and more of a partnership. Here's a guided reflection. Think of one area in your life where you feel stuck. Maybe it's work, family, or even your own self-image. Ask, am I being too rigid here? How can I be like bamboo? Let the question itself soften your mind. Remember, flexibility doesn't mean abandoning values. The bamboo bends, but does not uproot. In the same way, we can stay true to our deepest principles: kindness, integrity, compassion, while adapting to circumstances. That is real strength. Think again of water. It never argues with the rock. It doesn't say, "You are in my way." It simply flows around, over, or through. Over time, the hardest stone is shaped by the softest element. This is the paradox of flexibility. What looks soft is, in truth, unshakably strong. Tom, a physician in Seattle, experienced this paradox firsthand. He was consumed with fear of making mistakes, terrified that one error could cost a patient's life. This rigidity led to sleepless nights and overwhelming stress. Then he discovered mindfulness. By practicing presence, he learned to flow like water, attentive, precise, yet not paralyzed by fear. His patients noticed his calmer presence. His colleagues remarked that he seemed more balanced. Flexibility didn't make him careless, it made him more effective. Psychologists call this ability cognitive reappraisal, the skill of seeing a situation in a new light. When we are rigid, we see only one path. When we are flexible, new options appear. Studies at Yale University have shown that people who practice reappraisal experience reduced anxiety and greater resilience in stressful environments. But flexibility is not just for crises. It is for everyday life. The traffic jam, the unexpected bill, the child who won't stop asking questions, these are all small storms testing our ability to bend. Each time you adapt with patience instead of anger, you strengthen the bamboo within. Let's try a practice together, the what else method. The next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, what else could this mean? What else could I try? This simple question opens space for creativity. Instead of reacting with rigidity, you invite new possibilities. Carlos, a college student from California, used this practice when he failed an important exam. His rigid thought was, "I'm a failure, I'll never succeed." But when he asked, what else could this mean? He realized it was feedback, not destiny. He adjusted his study habits, sought help, and improved dramatically. Flexibility turned failure into growth. This is the secret. Flexibility transforms obstacles into opportunities. Let's expand this idea further. In relationships, flexibility means listening deeply. It means recognizing that two truths can exist side by side. You don't always have to win the argument to win the relationship. Sometimes peace is found not in being right, but in being open. A Zen teacher once said, "When the tree of I am right falls, the forest of harmony grows." Now, let's pause for a short reflection. Bring to mind a recent conflict you had with a spouse, a friend, a colleague. Ask yourself, where could I have been more like bamboo? Where could I have bent without losing my roots? Breathe in that possibility. Breathe out the rigidity. Here's a call to action for you. Try the bamboo challenge this week. Choose one situation where you normally react with rigidity and experiment with flexibility instead. Then, share your story in the comments. Your example might inspire someone else to bend where they once would have broken. Let us look more closely at why flexibility feels so difficult. Often, it is because of fear. Fear tells us that if we bend, we will break. Fear whispers that if we let go of control, everything will collapse. But Zen wisdom teaches the opposite. It is rigidity that leads to collapse. Flexibility is what allows us to endure. Think of Emily, the mother from Ohio we mentioned earlier. When her children argued, she clung to the belief that parenting meant controlling every situation. The more rigid she became, the worse the fights grew. But when she practiced bending, listening instead of commanding, guiding instead of dictating, her children responded with trust. What once felt like chaos became a chance to model compassion. This is how flexibility works. It transforms the battlefield into a classroom. Modern research on resilience confirms this. At Harvard University, studies show that individuals who adapt quickly to change recover from trauma more effectively than those who cling to rigid patterns. Soldiers, survivors of natural disasters, even patients facing illness, all demonstrate that flexibility, more than sheer willpower, predicts long-term healing. Let's try another practice, the river meditation. Close your eyes and imagine a river flowing before you. Drop into the water, a small branch representing your current struggle. Watch how the river carries it, gently but surely, around rocks and over bends. Remind yourself, I too can flow. When you open your eyes, notice if your body feels a little lighter. Carlos, our college student from California, began using this meditation during stressful exams. Instead of freezing with panic, he visualized his stress as a branch carried by the river. His grades improved, yes, but more importantly, his joy in learning returned. Flexibility also shows up in how we treat ourselves. Many of us are rigid with our own mistakes. We punish ourselves with harsh words, I should have done better, I always fail. But true strength is self-compassion. To bend with our flaws, to forgive ourselves, to adapt and grow, that is resilience in its purest form. Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles, discovered this when she changed her creative style. At first, she criticized every new piece. This isn't good enough, this isn't me. But when she practiced self-flexibility, accepting mistakes as part of the journey, her creativity blossomed. What she once feared would end her career actually expanded it. Here's a question for reflection. In what area of your life are you most rigid with yourself? Is it your work, your relationships, your body image, your dreams? What would it look like to bend gently here? Flexibility doesn't erase responsibility. The bamboo is still rooted. Water still follows gravity. Flexibility simply means moving with reality instead of against it. And remember this, flexibility is contagious. When you practice it, those around you feel safer. Families relax, workplaces soften, friendships deepen, Just as one rigid tree can cause a forest to break in the storm, one flexible tree can inspire others to bend and survive. So here is your call to action. Take one situation this week where you normally resist and practice bending. Maybe it's at work, maybe at home, maybe with yourself. Then share your experience in the comments. By sharing, you water the seed of flexibility, not only in your life, but in our entire community. Flexibility is not only about how we respond to challenges, it is also about how we hold our expectations. Much of our suffering comes from rigid ideas of how life should be. We tell ourselves, my career should look like this by age 40, my relationships should follow this path, my health should always be perfect. When reality does not match the script, we feel broken. Zen wisdom invites us to loosen our grip on should and open to what island. Instead of clinging to one rigid storyline, we allow life to unfold with its surprises. This doesn't mean giving up on dreams. It means holding them with a lighter touch so they can evolve as we do. John, the businessman from Texas we met earlier, faced this when his company struggled. His rigid script said, success means constant growth, more profit, endless expansion. When reality diverged, he panicked. But by practicing flexibility, he rewrote the story. Success means resilience, adaptation, serving people well. That shift allowed him to make creative choices that revived his company. Science supports this reframing. Psychologists call it cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift perspectives and see problems from multiple angles. Research from the University of Cambridge shows that individuals with high cognitive flexibility are less prone to depression and anxiety. Why? Because they don't get trapped in one rigid interpretation of events. They see alternatives, and alternatives bring hope. Here's a simple practice to build this skill, the maybe exercise. Whenever you face disappointment, add the word maybe to your thought. For example, this job rejection is terrible. Maybe it's leading me to something better. This illness is frightening. Maybe it will teach me to care for my body. By adding maybe, you soften the rigidity of despair and open space for possibility. Ethan, the software engineer from San Francisco, began using this exercise. When projects failed, instead of spiraling into hopelessness, he told himself, maybe this failure is pointing me toward a new skill. Over time, this flexible mindset reduced his anxiety and increased his confidence. Flexibility also shows up in how we deal with time. Many of us are prisoners of schedules. We cling to the clock, and when things don't go as planned, we collapse in frustration. But life rarely runs on our schedule. Delays, interruptions, detours, they are inevitable. The question is, can we bend with time instead of breaking against it? Try this practice, the pause of presence. When your plans are disrupted, instead of fighting reality, take 3 slow breaths. Remind yourself, this moment is also part of the path. Often, what feels like wasted time becomes an unexpected gift, a chance to rest, observe, or notice something new. Let's turn to relationships again. Michael, the musician from Nashville, once confessed that he used to argue endlessly with his bandmates. He demanded that every song follow his exact vision. The group nearly dissolved under his rigidity. Then he remembered the teaching of water. He began asking, how can we flow together? The band started to improvise, to adapt to each other's strengths, and the music came alive in ways he could never have planned. Audiences felt the difference. It was no longer performance, it was harmony. This is the hidden blessing of flexibility. it often brings outcomes better than the ones we originally demanded. So let me ask you, where in your life are you clinging too tightly to a script? What would happen if you loosened your grip, even slightly? Could something unexpected and beautiful emerge? Remember, flexibility is not giving up. It is showing up differently. It is meeting life as it is, without breaking under the weight of what we thought it should be. Another powerful image of flexibility is the reed by the riverbank. During storms, the reed bends so low it almost touches the ground. But when the storm passes, it rises again, unbroken. In contrast, the stiff branches of nearby trees often snap. This is why many Zen teachers remind us, be like the reed, not the rigid oak. Let's apply this to our daily stress. When unexpected change arrives, a job loss, an illness, or even something as small as a cancelled plan, our first reaction is often to resist. Resistance tightens the body, narrows the mind, and multiplies suffering. But if we bend, even slightly, we remain unbroken. Sarah, the nurse from New York, learned this in the most difficult way. During the pandemic, her schedule was constantly shifting. New protocols appeared daily. At first, she resisted fiercely. Why can't things stay consistent? The rigidity burned her out. Then she remembered the bamboo teaching. Instead of demanding stability, she whispered each morning, "I will bend with what comes." This simple mantra transformed her experience. She still worked long, exhausting hours, but her heart remained steadier. She became like a reed in the storm. Science explains why this works. Research from the University of California, Berkeley, shows that people who score high in emotional flexibility recover more quickly from stress. Their nervous systems return to baseline faster after a challenge. In simple terms, flexibility doesn't just feel good, it literally helps the body heal. Let's try a guided practice called the bamboo breath. As you inhale, imagine yourself tall and rooted, like a stalk of bamboo. As you exhale, imagine bending gently in the wind, flowing with life instead of against it. Repeat this 3 times. Notice how your body softens, how your mind feels less rigid. Flexibility also applies to our goals. Many of us set rigid targets. I must achieve this promotion. I must lose this exact amount of weight. I must have this relationship by this age. Goals can inspire, but when they harden into demands, they become chains. True growth often happens when we allow goals to adapt. Take David, the Boston manager. He once forced his team to follow every plan to the letter. When circumstances changed, he panicked. But when he learned flexibility, he shifted focus. Instead of obsessing over rigid outcomes, he prioritized values like teamwork and trust. Ironically, his company achieved greater success because they adapted swiftly to change. Here's a reflection. Think of one goal you hold tightly. Ask yourself, am I flexible with how this unfolds, or am I chained to one rigid picture? Consider loosening your grip just a little. Remember, flexibility is not drifting aimlessly. It is navigating with values as your compass while allowing the route to change. Another story comes from Michael, the Nashville musician. When his band practiced, he once demanded perfection. Every note had to follow his script. But when he embraced flexibility, rehearsals turned into improvisations. Mistakes became melodies. The band discovered a flow state that lifted both them and their audiences. What once felt like chaos became art. This shows a deeper truth. Flexibility is the birthplace of creativity. When the mind is rigid, it repeats old patterns. When it bends, it discovers new paths. So here is your practice for the week, the Flexibility Journal. Each evening, write down one moment where you bent instead of broke. Maybe you listened instead of argued. Maybe you adjusted a plan without resentment. Maybe you forgave yourself instead of punishing. Over time, these small entries become a forest of resilience. And here is your call to action. Share one flexible moment from your day in the comments. By sharing, you water the seed of adaptability, not only in yourself, but in our collective community. Flexibility also means learning to accept impermanence. Life is always changing, seasons shift, relationships evolve, our bodies age. Yet many of us resist these natural transitions, clinging to the illusion of permanence. Zen teaches that true peace comes when we flow with impermanence instead of fighting it. Consider Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles. For years, she resisted changing her artistic style. She believed that if she left her familiar patterns, her audience would abandon her. But when she finally embraced change, her creativity blossomed. She discovered new techniques, new audiences, and even a new sense of freedom within herself. By bending with impermanence, she uncovered growth that rigidity had denied her. Modern research echoes this wisdom. A study at the University of Michigan found that people who accepted life's changes with flexibility reported higher levels of life satisfaction and lower levels of stress. They didn't avoid change, they adapted to it. Here's a practical way to cultivate this: the empty cup ritual. Each morning, hold an actual cup in your hands. Imagine it empty, ready to be filled. Whisper to yourself, "Today I empty myself of yesterday. Today I am open to what is new." This small ritual trains the mind to welcome change instead of fearing it. Flexibility also invites us to release control. Control often feels safe, but it is an illusion. When we try to control everything, we close ourselves off from the natural flow of life. The Buddha said, "Clinging is the root of suffering." To cling rigidly is to suffer. To loosen our grip is to find freedom. David, the Boston manager, learned this with his team. He once believed that leadership meant control, but when he shifted to trust, his employees flourished. Releasing control created space for creativity, responsibility, and joy. This lesson is equally important within families. Parents often try to control their children's paths out of love and fear. But children, like seeds, grow best when given space to root in their own soil. Flexibility in parenting means guiding without suffocating, supporting without dominating. Let's pause for another reflection. Close your eyes and bring to mind one area where you are holding on too tightly. Ask, what would happen if I loosened my grip? What if I trusted the flow of life here? Breathe into that possibility. Flexibility is also about forgiveness. When we are rigid, we hold grudges. We say, "They hurt me, and I will never let it go." But forgiveness is bending the heart. It doesn't mean excusing harm. It means choosing not to let the past chain us. The bamboo bends, not because it is weak, but because it knows the wind will pass. Emily, the mother from Ohio, practiced this with her children. When they made mistakes, she chose forgiveness instead of punishment. This flexibility built trust, and her children grew stronger, more responsible, and more loving. Science supports this as well. Studies show that forgiveness reduces blood pressure, lowers stress hormones, and increases overall well-being. Flexibility of the heart heals not only the spirit, but also the body. So here's a practice for you: the bamboo heart. Think of someone who has hurt you. As you inhale, Imagine your heart bending like bamboo, strong but open. As you exhale, whisper, "May I release this weight." Try this for a few breaths each day. Forgiveness will not come instantly, but with practice, the heart learns to bend. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one area where you will practice flexibility this week. Is it with your plans, your expectations, your relationships, or yourself? Remember, your story may inspire someone else to bend rather than break. Flexibility also teaches us how to face uncertainty. Life rarely unfolds according to plan. Jobs are lost, relationships change, health shifts, and global events remind us that nothing is guaranteed. Inflexibility demands certainty and collapses when it doesn't arrive. Flexibility says, "I will move with the unknown. I will walk even without seeing the whole path." Tom, the physician from Seattle, shared how flexibility helped him face medical uncertainty. In surgery, not everything goes as expected. Rigid thinking can lead to panic. But when he trained himself to adapt, focusing on what he could do rather than what he couldn't, he found clarity even in crisis. Patients benefited not from his control, but from his capacity to flow. This quality is what psychologists call resilient flexibility. A study from the American Psychological Association found that people who embrace uncertainty with flexible attitudes report lower anxiety and stronger problem-solving skills. Flexibility doesn't eliminate the unknown, it gives us strength to meet it. Let's try a practice called the open hand. Hold your fist tightly closed for a moment. Feel the tension in your hand, your arm, maybe even your chest. Now slowly open your hand. Feel the release. This is the difference between rigidity and flexibility. Carry this memory into moments of uncertainty. When life feels clenched, choose to open. Flexibility also enriches creativity and innovation. When we are rigid, we repeat old solutions. When we are flexible, we invent new possibilities. Michael, the musician from Nashville, discovered this when he allowed improvisation in his band. What once felt risky became their greatest strength. Audiences didn't just hear music, they felt freedom. In workplaces too, flexibility fosters creativity. A study from the London Business School found that teams with flexible thinking generated more innovative solutions than rigid ones. Adaptability creates space for imagination. So here's a practice, the what-if game. When faced with a problem, instead of saying, "It can't be done," ask, "What if it could? What would it look like?" Play with possibilities, even if they seem unrealistic. This loosens the grip of rigidity and invites creativity to enter. Flexibility also supports compassion. When we are rigid, we judge others harshly. They should act like this. They should think like me. But flexibility allows us to see from another perspective. We realize that everyone is carrying their own burdens, shaped by different histories. Bending our judgments makes space for kindness. Carlos, the student from California, once judged his roommate constantly. He thought, "He's lazy, he's irresponsible." Their relationship grew tense. But when Carlos practiced flexibility, he asked, what might his life look like through his eyes? He discovered his roommate was juggling 2 jobs to support his family. Compassion bloomed where rigidity once ruled. Here's another reflection. Where in your life could compassion grow if you softened your judgments? Who needs you to bend your heart, even just a little? Finally, let's remember, flexibility is not something we master once and for all. It is a practice, renewed daily. Some days we bend easily, other days we snap. That's okay. Even bamboo that breaks sends up new shoots in spring. So here is your closing practice for this section. Tonight, before you sleep, place your hand on your chest and whisper, "May I be flexible tomorrow. May I bend with life, not break against it." Carry this wish into your dreams and see how it shapes your waking hours. And your call to action. Share one area where you will practice being like bamboo this week. Maybe at work, maybe at home, maybe with yourself. Let our community be a forest of resilience, bending together through life's storms. This concludes part 3 of our journey. We have seen that strength is not rigidity, but adaptability. From the reed to the bamboo, from water to forgiveness, flexibility allows us to endure, to grow, and to live in harmony with change. In the next part, we will explore another secret of Zen, the truth that peace is found only in the present moment. Anxiety lives in the future, regret lives in the past, but freedom is always here and now. Take a breath. Smile gently. And when you are ready, let us step together into part 4. Peace exists only in the present moment. Anxiety lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. But peace, real, lasting peace, exists only here, in the present moment. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past, do not dream of the future, but concentrate the mind on the present moment." This is one of the most direct and powerful teachings in all of Buddhism. Think of Tom, a doctor in Seattle. Every night, he lay awake, replaying mistakes he might have made that day, and worrying about mistakes he might make tomorrow. His body was exhausted, but his mind refused to rest. He was living everywhere except the present moment. Only when he learned mindfulness meditation, anchoring himself in the now, did he begin to sleep peacefully again. By returning to the present, he reclaimed his life. Let's pause here. Place your hand on your breath. Feel the inhale, feel the exhale. For these few seconds, the future does not exist. The past does not exist. There is only this breath. This is peace. Modern science confirms what ancient wisdom has always known. A Yale study found that people who practice mindfulness regularly show reduced activity in the default mode network of the brain, the part linked to rumination and worry. In other words, the more we anchor in the present, the less our brains obsess about the past and future. Let's try a practical exercise, the 5-4-3-2-1 practice. Look around you. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This practice grounds you in the present moment instantly. Emily, a mother from Ohio, used this technique during stressful moments with her children. When her anxiety spiked, she would silently do the 5-4-3-2-1 practice. Within minutes, her mind returned from the storm of what-ifs to the calm of what island. Her children noticed the difference, and the atmosphere at home became gentler. Another story. Carlos, the student in California, was drowning in worries about the future graduate school, career, financial debt. A mentor asked him, "Where are your feet right now?" Carlos looked down and said, "On the ground." The mentor smiled. "Then that is where your life is here, not in your fears." That moment awakened Carlos to the power of presence. Here's another exercise. 3 moments of peace. Each day, write down 3 moments when you felt calm today. They might be as simple as sipping tea, feeling the sun on your skin, or hearing birds sing. By recording them, you train your mind to notice peace where it already exists in the now. Let's return to the science. Researchers at Harvard found that people's minds wander nearly 47% of the time, and that this wandering is directly linked to unhappiness. When our attention is scattered, so is our peace. But mindfulness brings the mind back home, and with it, a sense of contentment. Peace is not something we chase. It is not hidden in the next achievement, the next purchase, or the next relationship. Peace is always available in the present. The problem is not that peace is far away. The problem is that we are. We are always running into the past or the future. So, let's pause again. Breathe deeply. Whisper softly to yourself, I am here, I am now. This moment is enough. And here is your call to action. Share in the comments one simple moment today when you felt present. It could be drinking your morning coffee, hugging your child, or simply breathing. By naming it, you anchor it even more deeply in your awareness. One of the greatest traps of the mind is the if-only story. We tell ourselves, if only I had more money, I would be at peace. If only my partner changed, I would be happy. If only the future worked out as I want, then I could finally rest. But Zen wisdom cuts through this illusion. Peace does not live in the future, if only. Peace lives here, in the breath you are taking right now. Tom, the Seattle doctor, discovered this truth in the middle of a long shift. He realized that even though his work was demanding, he could take one mindful breath between patients. That single breath became an oasis. Instead of waiting for a vacation to find peace, he carried peace into his daily work. Modern neuroscience supports this. Studies using MRI scans show that even brief moments of mindfulness, just 3 conscious breaths, reduce activity in the amygdala, the brain's stress center. The present moment literally calms the brain. Let's try a short practice right now. Pause. Take one breath, in and out. Notice the space it creates in your mind. That space is always available. Emily, the mother from Ohio, once described how she used to live in constant fear about her children's future, college, careers, safety. Then she began journaling about moments of presence. She wrote about her son's laughter, her daughter's hugs, the smell of cookies baking in the oven. She said, I realized the moments I was chasing were already here. I just wasn't noticing them. Here's a practical tool. The 3 bells. Set 3 reminders on your phone throughout the day. When each bell rings, stop whatever you are doing, take one mindful breath, and ask, where am I right now? This simple pause trains the mind to return to presence again and again. Carlos, the college student, shared how this practice transformed his studies. Instead of drowning in worry about his future career, he used the bells to bring himself back to the page in front of him. His focus improved, and so did his grades. Peace in the present also means accepting imperfection. The mind often says, I will be at peace when everything is perfect, but life is never perfect. There is always another problem, another challenge, another uncertainty. If we wait for perfection, we wait forever. Zen invites us to see beauty in the imperfect, to rest in the now, even when it is messy. The Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, teaches us this. The cracks are not flaws to be hidden, but features to be honored. In the same way, our present moments may be cracked, but they shine when we accept them fully. So let me ask you, what moment today, imperfect as it is, can you embrace fully? Share it in the comments. By naming it, you remind yourself and others that peace is not about perfection, it is about presence. And remember, the present moment is never small. It is vast. It holds the entire universe. When you take one mindful breath, you connect with the same rhythm of life that flows through oceans, mountains, and stars. You are not escaping life, you are entering it fully. Why is it so hard to stay present? Because the mind is like a restless monkey, jumping from branch to branch, past to future, worry to regret. This monkey mind believes it is protecting us by anticipating danger. But in truth, it steals our peace. Zen practice trains the monkey to rest not by force, but by gentle awareness. Think of Anna, the office worker from Chicago. She spent her days worrying about layoffs and her nights regretting past choices. But when she learned to focus on her breath for even 2 minutes at her desk, she found an island of calm. Her co-workers noticed her steady presence. She said, "For the first time, I realized peace wasn't out there, it was already here." Science shows that training attention in this way rewires the brain. A study at Massachusetts General Hospital found that participants in an 8-week mindfulness program showed measurable increases in gray matter in the hippocampus, an area linked to learning and emotional regulation. Presence is not just philosophy, it is biology. Here's a practice called 1 minute now. Once a day, set a timer for 60 seconds. For that minute, do nothing but notice your breath, your body, your surroundings. 1 minute may seem small, but it trains the mind to return, again and again, to the now. Michael, the musician from Nashville, began this practice backstage before concerts. Instead of obsessing about mistakes he might make, he gave himself 1 minute of pure presence. Audiences later said they felt more authenticity in his music. His art deepened because he was fully there. Peace in the present also heals relationships. Too often, when we speak with loved ones, our minds are elsewhere, scrolling through worries, planning tomorrow, replaying yesterday. But true love is presence. When you give someone your full attention, you give them the rarest gift in the world. Emily once told me how this changed her family dinners. Before, she would sit at the table still worrying about bills or chores. Her children felt her absence. Then she made a rule for herself. During dinner, she would be fully present. No phone, no to-do list, only listening. The result? More laughter, more connection, more peace. Try this practice tonight. When speaking to someone you love, put away distractions and look into their eyes. Notice their voice, their expressions, their presence. See if the moment feels richer. The Buddha often described mindfulness as the direct path to liberation. Why? Because the present is the only place suffering can dissolve. In the past, suffering is memory. In the future, suffering is imagination. But here, now, in the space of one mindful breath, suffering loses its grip. So let's pause once more. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. Whisper, "This moment is enough." And here is your call to action. In the comments, write one simple practice you will use to return to the present this week. Will it be the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, the 1 minute now, or simply one mindful breath before bed? Share it and inspire someone else to step into the peace of now. There is another obstacle to presence, our obsession with multitasking. We eat while checking emails. We talk while scrolling through our phones. We drive while planning tomorrow's schedule. In trying to do everything, we miss the only thing that matters, the life unfolding in this moment. Zen invites us to practice one thing at a time. When you eat, just eat. Notice the taste, the texture, the gift of nourishment. When you walk, just walk. Feel your feet touching the ground, the rhythm of your steps. When you listen, just listen. Offer your full attention without preparing your reply. Anna, our office worker from Chicago, used this principle at lunch. She stopped eating at her desk with spreadsheets open. Instead, she took her sandwich to the park and practiced simply eating. She said, "It was the first time I actually tasted my food in years." That simple act brought her more peace than any vacation she had taken. Science agrees. Studies at the University of Washington found that multitasking reduces productivity and increases stress. In contrast, focused attention doing one thing at a time improves performance and well-being. Presence is not only spiritual, it is practical. Here's a practice to try: mindful meals. Once a day, eat without distractions. No screens, no reading, just food. Notice the colors, smells, and textures. Be grateful for the hands that prepared it, the earth that grew it, the journey it took to your plate. You may find that peace has been hiding in your meals all along. Peace in the present also transforms how we see nature. When we walk outside with mindfulness, trees are no longer background scenery. They are living beings sharing the same breath. The sky is no longer empty, it is a canvas of presence. Michael, the musician, told me how he started taking mindful walks before writing songs. He listened to birds, felt the wind, watched the play of light on leaves. He said, "My best melodies came not from forcing, but from listening to the present." Flexibility gave him strength, but presence gave him inspiration. Let's try this. Next time you step outside, leave your phone behind. Walk slowly. Notice 3 colors, 3 sounds, 3 sensations on your skin. This simple practice opens the door to peace. Another obstacle to presence is regret. The mind replays old mistakes, words we shouldn't have spoken, chances we didn't take. But regret is living in a past that no longer exists. Presence invites us to learn from the past without being imprisoned by it. The Japanese Zen master Dogen said, "The past is already gone, the future is not yet here. There is only this moment, the eternal now." Emily practiced this when she found herself replaying arguments with her husband. Instead of drowning in regret, she paused and asked, "What can I do in this moment to bring peace?" Sometimes it meant offering an apology. Sometimes it meant simply being silent and kind. By returning to the now, she healed not only herself, but her relationship. So here's a practice for you. When regret arises, place your hand on your heart and whisper, "That moment is gone. This moment is alive." Repeat until you feel anchored in the present. And now, your call to action. Share in the comments one daily activity where you will practice being fully present. Maybe it's brushing your teeth, walking your dog, or washing the dishes. Remember, when you are present, even the simplest act becomes sacred. Presence is also about how we breathe. Breath is the bridge between body and mind, between life's chaos and life's peace. Yet most of us breathe shallowly, unconsciously, as if rushing even in our lungs. Mindful breathing slows the rhythm of thought, anchors us in now, and reminds us that we are alive. Thich Nhat Hanh often taught, breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Such a simple practice, yet it has carried countless people back to the present moment. Tom, the doctor in Seattle, began using this during stressful operations. Before entering the room, he took 3 mindful breaths. He said, "It didn't change the difficulty of the surgery, but it changed me. I entered steady, not frantic." That presence rippled outward to nurses, patients, and colleagues. Science explains why. Slow, mindful breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, lowering heart rate and calming the nervous system. It is not just spiritual poetry, it is biological reality. Let's try together. Inhale slowly through your nose. Hold gently for a count of 2. Exhale fully through your mouth. Do this 3 times. Notice how the body softens. Notice how the mind clears. This is presence, available with every breath. Peace in the present also changes how we work. Many of us rush through tasks, eyes fixed on the next deadline. But when we work mindfully, each action becomes complete in itself. Washing dishes is not a chore but an act of presence. Answering emails is not a burden but a chance to breathe between words. Anna tried this at her office. Instead of typing frantically, she paused before each email, took a breath, and wrote with awareness. She discovered fewer mistakes, more clarity, and a surprising calmness in her day. Here's a practice: 1 breath, 1 task. Before beginning any activity, take 1 slow breath. This small pause transforms routine work into mindful living. Peace in the present also means noticing joy. Too often we postpone happiness. I'll be happy when the weekend comes, when the bills are paid, when the project is done. But joy is not a reward, it is a companion waiting in each moment. Emily began writing a joy list. Each day she noted 1 small joy: sunlight through the window, her daughter's laughter, the warmth of tea. She said, "I realized I had been walking past joy every day. Presence helped me see it." Let's pause for reflection. What joy is present right now for you? Maybe it is the sound of your breath, the comfort of your chair, or the gift of listening to these words. Peace lives in these ordinary joys. Finally, presence is about gratitude. When we are present, gratitude arises naturally. We see that nothing is guaranteed: this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. Gratitude transforms the ordinary into the sacred. Carlos practiced this during his studies. Whenever stress overwhelmed him, he paused and whispered, "Thank you for this breath. Thank you for this chance to learn." Gratitude didn't erase his challenges, but it changed his relationship to them. So here is your call to action. In the comments, share 1 joy or 1 gratitude you noticed today. By naming it, you anchor yourself and inspire others to see the peace already present in their lives. Presence also transforms how we experience pain. Most of our suffering is not from the pain itself, but from the stories we add. This will never end. This means my life is ruined. Why me? The Buddha taught that pain is like being struck by 1 arrow, but worry and resistance are like shooting ourselves with a second arrow. The first arrow may be inevitable, the second is optional. Tom, the Seattle doctor, practiced this when dealing with his own chronic back pain. Instead of fighting the discomfort, he learned to breathe with it, noticing the sensation moment by moment. He said, "When I stopped saying this pain will last forever and simply felt the present sensation, it became bearable." Presence didn't erase the pain, but it erased the second arrow. Modern psychology calls this acceptance. Studies from the University of Toronto show that patients with chronic pain who practice mindfulness report lower distress and greater quality of life, even when pain levels remain the same. Presence changes our relationship with pain. Here's a practice: the pain scan. When discomfort arises, instead of resisting, close your eyes and gently scan the body. Notice the sensation with curiosity. Where is it? Is it sharp or dull, constant or shifting? By observing instead of fighting, you anchor in the present and reduce suffering. Presence also changes how we face fear. Fear is almost always about the future, something that has not yet happened. But in the present, most fears dissolve. Right now, in this breath, are you safe? Are you alive? Then peace is here. Emily discovered this when she worried endlessly about her children's safety. Her therapist asked, At this very moment, are your children safe? She answered yes. That question became her anchor. Whenever fear arose, she asked, right now, are they safe? The answer almost always returned her to peace. Science agrees. Fear activates the amygdala, but mindfulness reduces amygdala activity and strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain linked to calm reasoning. Presence is the antidote to fear's illusions. Another dimension of presence is silence. Our world is filled with noise, phones buzzing, media shouting, thoughts racing. But silence is not empty. Silence is full of presence. When we sit quietly, even for a few minutes, we discover the peace that was hidden beneath the noise all along. Michael, the musician, practiced this before composing. He said, I used to chase inspiration. Now I sit in silence, and inspiration finds me. Presence in silence opened the door to creativity. Try this. Each day, set aside 5 minutes with no phone, no talking, no distractions. Simply sit and breathe. Notice how peace rises naturally in the stillness. Finally, presence invites us to see that every moment is sacred. Washing dishes, walking to work, listening to a loved one, these are not waiting rooms for real life. They are life. When we are present, ordinary acts become extraordinary. So here is your reflection. What simple act today can you treat as sacred by being fully present? Drinking tea? Folding laundry? Smiling at a stranger? Write it in the comments. Share your sacred moment and help others discover theirs. There is a Zen saying, this moment is your life. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, this moment. When we forget this, we chase illusions. When we remember, we come home. Ethan, the software engineer from San Francisco, once told me that his life felt like a constant chase. Promotions, possessions, recognition. He believed peace was always one step away. But when he finally sat in meditation, focusing on nothing more than his breath, he realized the treasure he had been chasing was already in his hands. Peace was not a destination. It was a way of being present. Modern research gives us language for this. Psychologists describe flow states, moments when we are fully immersed in the present, losing track of time, feeling alive and engaged. Athletes call it being in the zone. Artists call it inspiration. Buddhists call it mindfulness. Different words, same truth. Presence is where life shines. Here's a practice to invite flow into daily life. Choose one activity, cooking, gardening, painting, even washing the car, and do it with full attention. No multitasking, no rushing, just presence. Notice how time feels different when you are fully there. Peace in the present also connects us to gratitude for being alive. Every breath is a gift, billions never receive again. Every sunrise is a miracle. When we are present, we see these truths. Gratitude is not something we force. It arises naturally when we open our eyes to now. Linda, the teacher from Florida, began ending each school day by writing one sentence of gratitude for something that happened in class. Sometimes it was a child's question, sometimes a smile, sometimes simply surviving the chaos. She said, "These moments became jewels I would have overlooked without presence." Here's a reflection for you. Right now, what is one thing you are grateful for? Not tomorrow, not someday, right now. Write it in the comments and let your gratitude water someone else's seed of peace. The Buddha taught, peace comes from within, do not seek it without. The within he spoke of is not hidden in distant places, it is the present moment itself. So as we close this part of our journey, remember, anxiety belongs to the future, regret belongs to the past, peace belongs to now. Each time you return to your breath, your senses, your presence, you return to life. Let's close with a simple practice together. Sit comfortably. Inhale and whisper silently, here. Exhale and whisper, now. Do this 3 times. Notice the stillness that arises. This stillness was always here, waiting for you. And here is your final call to action for this section. This week, choose one daily routine, your morning coffee, your evening walk, or your bedtime ritual, and dedicate it to presence. Share in the comments what you chose, and let us create a collective practice of peace across the world. This concludes Part 4. We have learned that peace cannot be chased in the future or rescued from the past. It is always here, always now, always available. In the next part, we will face a profound truth. Most of the storms we fear never arrive. Anxiety often comes from imaginary tigers rather than real ones. And by learning to see this, we can release much of the suffering that weighs us down. Take one last mindful breath. Smile gently. And when you are ready, let us step together into Part 5. Most storms never arrive. How many nights have you stayed awake worrying about something that never happened? A meeting you feared would go terribly, but went smoothly. A conversation you imagined would end in conflict, but turned out gentle. A disaster you rehearsed 100 times in your mind that never came to pass. Most storms never arrive. The Buddha often spoke about the difference between real danger and imagined danger. He compared it to meeting a tiger. If a tiger stands before you, that is real danger. Your heart pounds, your body prepares to act, and you must respond. But if you are lying in bed imagining a tiger outside your door, that is not real danger. It is fear born of thought. And yet, your body reacts the same way. You suffer as if the tiger were real. Emily, the mother from Ohio, lived with these imaginary tigers. She constantly worried about her children's future. What if they failed in school? What if they made the wrong friends? What if they didn't get into college? These fears consumed her, creating tension in the home. But when she learned the Zen teaching of distinguishing real tigers from imagined ones, her life changed. She began asking, is this fear happening now, or is it a story in my head? More often than not, the tiger was imaginary. With this realization, peace returned to her family. Science confirms this wisdom. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania studied worry and found that 85% of the things people feared never actually happened. Of the remaining 15%, 79% of people said they handled the outcome better than expected. In other words, nearly all our worries are either false alarms or manageable when they do occur. So why does the mind create storms that never arrive? Because the mind evolved to protect us from danger. Thousands of years ago, anticipating threats kept our ancestors alive. But today, that same mechanism floods us with unnecessary alarms. The result? Anxiety without cause. Let's try a practice to cut through this. Call it the tiger test. The next time worry arises, ask 2 questions. Is this happening right now? And, if it does happen, can I handle it? If the answer to the first is no, the tiger is imaginary. If the answer to the second is yes, then even a real tiger is manageable. Carlos, the student from California, used the tiger test before exams. He used to panic for weeks, imagining failure. But when he asked, is this happening now? The answer was no. The exam was still days away. When the day finally came, he asked, can I handle this? The answer was yes. He had studied, he had prepared. The storm dissolved. Here's another story. David, the Boston manager, feared losing control of his team. He imagined disasters at every turn, projects collapsing, clients leaving, employees rebelling. But when he began practicing mindfulness, he saw that most of these disasters never happened. His imagined storms were costing him energy he could use to actually lead. By letting go of the unreal, he regained strength for the real. Let's pause for reflection. Think of one worry haunting you right now. Ask, is this happening, or am I imagining a tiger? Notice the answer. Notice how the body relaxes when the storm is revealed as illusion. And here is your call to action. Share in the comments one imaginary storm you have recognized in your own life. By naming it, you take away its power. And by sharing, you help others see their storms more clearly too. Why do imaginary storms feel so real? Because the body cannot tell the difference between a thought and an event. When you imagine failure, your heart rate rises. When you picture conflict, your muscles tense. The storm in the mind creates a storm in the body. John, the businessman from Texas, experienced this vividly. When his company struggled, he lay awake every night, envisioning bankruptcy. His body responded with headaches, chest pain, and exhaustion, even though the crisis had not actually happened. When he learned mindfulness, he began to interrupt the cycle. Each time worry arose, he asked, "Is this happening now?" Often the answer was no. The more he practiced, the calmer his body became, and ironically, the healthier his business grew. Science provides clear evidence for this connection. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that chronic worriers have elevated cortisol levels, which damage the immune system and shorten lifespan. But when people practice mindfulness, anchoring attention in the present, cortisol drops, sleep improves, and the body heals. Here's a practice to try: the Storm Journal. Each evening, write down your biggest worry of the day. Then answer, did this storm actually arrive? Over time, you will notice a pattern. Most storms never come. Seeing it in writing weakens fear's grip. Emily tried this for 1 month. She filled pages with worries about her children, her job, her health. At the end of the month, she looked back and realized more than 90% of the storms never arrived. She laughed and said, "I've been living in hurricanes that never existed." That awareness alone brought her peace. Let's pause for a short meditation. Close your eyes and imagine a dark sky filled with storm clouds, your worries. Now imagine the wind slowly blowing them away, revealing clear blue sky. Whisper to yourself, most storms never arrive. Feel the relief in your body. Carlos, the college student, found this practice helpful before interviews. He used to picture rejection so vividly that he almost sabotaged himself. But by repeating, "Most storms never arrive," he entered with calm. Sometimes he was accepted, sometimes not, but either way, he handled it with peace. Flexibility and presence both support this teaching. Flexibility helps us bend when real storms come. Presence helps us see when storms are only in our minds. Together, they free us from unnecessary suffering. Here's a reflection. Think of the last 5 storms you worried about. How many actually arrived? And of those that did, how many did you survive? The answers remind us that fear exaggerates, but life provides strength. And here is your call to action. In the comments, write one storm you worried about that never came. Your story may help someone else realize they too are safe in the clear sky of now. Sometimes the storm we fear is not about events, but about opinions. We worry what others will think, what they might say, how they might judge us. Yet most of these judgments never come. The imagined storm of criticism is often louder than reality itself. Linda, the teacher from Florida, used to lie awake rehearsing every possible complaint parents might have about her teaching. She imagined angry emails, confrontations, even losing her job. But when she finally spoke with parents, most were supportive, some even grateful. She laughed at herself, saying, "I fought a storm that never existed." This is why Zen practice asks us to question every thought. Just because the mind paints dark clouds doesn't mean rain will fall. Science shows that social anxiety often stems from overestimating negative judgment. Studies at Stanford reveal that people who fear embarrassment usually believe others notice their mistakes far more than they actually do. In truth, most people are too absorbed in their own lives to judge us as harshly as we imagine. Here's a practice: the reality check. When worry about others' opinions arises, ask, "Do I have evidence, or is this imagination?" If it's imagination, release it like clouds drifting across the sky. Another kind of storm is financial worry. Money is important, yes, but many of our fears about it are exaggerated. John, the Texas businessman, once panicked that one bad quarter meant the end of everything. He imagined bankruptcy, humiliation, failure. But when the quarter passed, the company stabilized. He realized he had suffered 3 months for a storm that never came. Emily kept a worry versus reality chart for her family finances. Each time she worried, "We won't make rent, we'll lose the house," she wrote it down. At the end of the year, almost none of the worries matched reality. She said, "I lived 12 months in storms when only 2 days held rain." Here's a reflection for you. Think of one financial worry you've carried recently. Did the storm actually arrive, or was it mostly fear in your mind? Carlos, the student, practiced this before graduation. He feared he would never find a job. But when he looked back months later, he realized many opportunities had opened, just not the way he expected. His storm never came. Let's pause for a guided meditation. Close your eyes and imagine standing on a hill, watching dark storm clouds in the distance. Some will pass by without touching you. Others may bring gentle rain. Few, if any, will truly harm you. Whisper to yourself, "I am safe in this moment. Most storms never arrive." Here's your call to action. In the comments, write one storm you feared that turned out to be only in your imagination. By sharing, you dissolve its power and remind others that they, too, can rest in clearer skies. Some storms never arrive because life itself is wiser than our fears. We imagine the worst, yet reality often unfolds with hidden gifts. Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles, once feared that changing her style would destroy her career. She imagined critics rejecting her, galleries closing doors, friends abandoning her. But when she finally dared to change, the opposite happened. New opportunities appeared, her audience grew, and she discovered creative freedom. The storm she dreaded never arrived. In fact, sunshine followed. Science calls this negativity bias, the brain's tendency to overestimate threats while underestimating opportunities. A study at New York University showed that people remember negative events more vividly than positive ones. This bias kept our ancestors safe from danger, but today it causes us to live in storms that don't exist. Mindfulness helps balance this bias, reminding us to notice not only the clouds, but also the clear sky. Here's a practice: bright spots. Each evening, write down 3 good things that happened today, no matter how small. This trains the brain to see sunshine as well as storms. Michael, the musician from Nashville, began this habit during a tough year. At first, he struggled to find positives. But slowly he noticed small joys, a kind word, a melody, a sunset. He said, "I realized the storms were smaller than I thought, and the bright spots were everywhere." Another type of storm is self-doubt. We imagine failure before we even begin. Ethan, the software engineer, nearly quit his job because he feared he wasn't capable. But when he finally faced the challenge, he succeeded. He laughed later, "The storm was only in my head." Science shows that self-doubt activates the same stress response as real danger. But repeated exposure to challenges, combined with mindfulness, teaches the brain resilience. We learn that the storms we fear rarely match reality. Let's pause for reflection. Think of something you've been avoiding because of fear. Ask yourself, is the storm real or only in my mind? Imagine stepping forward gently, like bamboo swaying in the wind, and discovering clear skies where you expected thunder. Here's another practice: storm or cloud. When worry appears, label it as a passing cloud unless there is evidence of real danger. This helps separate imagined storms from true challenges. Emily taught this to her children. When they feared monsters at night, she said, "Is it a storm or just a cloud?" Together they would check the closet, laugh, and sleep peacefully. Over time, they learned to apply the same question to school, friendships, and life. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one area of your life where you realized the storm was only a cloud. By naming it, you invite others to release their clouds too. Sometimes storms appear because of comparison. We look at others' lives on social media, in conversations, in our own imagination, and believe we are falling behind. We think, everyone else has it figured out, I am failing. But these comparisons are storms made of illusions. Anna, the office worker in Chicago, spent hours scrolling through posts of friends traveling, buying houses, celebrating milestones. She imagined she was drowning while everyone else was sailing smoothly. But when she spoke honestly with friends, she discovered they too had fears, debts, and struggles. The storm of comparison dissolved into compassion. Science shows that social media amplifies imagined storms. A study at the University of Copenhagen found that heavy Facebook use increased envy and decreased life satisfaction. Yet mindfulness, pausing, breathing, remembering the present restores perspective. Here's a practice: gratitude scroll. The next time you scroll through social media, instead of comparing, silently bless each person. May they be happy. May I be happy too. This transforms comparison into compassion. Another kind of storm arises from perfectionism. We imagine disaster if we are not flawless. Michael, the musician from Nashville, once cancelled performances because he feared making mistakes. He pictured humiliation, rejection, failure. But when he finally performed with acceptance of imperfection, audiences loved him more. The storm of perfection never arrived. Instead, authenticity connected him to others. Zen reminds us, the flower does not compete to be perfect, it simply blooms. Here's a reflection. Where in your life are you demanding perfection? What storm are you imagining if you show up imperfect? Can you let yourself bloom as you are? Sophia, the artist, used to polish her work endlessly, terrified of criticism. When she finally shared a piece unfinished, she expected backlash. Instead, people praised its raw honesty. She realized the imagined storm of rejection was really a doorway to connection. Science supports this. Research from the University of Houston shows that self-compassion, not perfectionism, is the strongest predictor of resilience and success. Letting go of imagined storms allows growth. Let's pause for a guided practice. Close your eyes and think of a storm of perfection you fear. Maybe it's at work, in relationships, or in creativity. Inhale and whisper, "I am enough." Exhale and whisper, "The storm is only in my mind." Repeat 3 times. Notice the release. Here's your call to action. In the comments, share one area where you will let go of perfectionism this week. Encourage others to release their storms too. There is another kind of storm, the storm of what if. What if I lose my job? What if my health declines? What if everything falls apart? These 2 words, what if, can create hurricanes in the mind. Yet most what-if storms never arrive. David, the Boston manager, once lived in constant what-ifs. What if my employees quit? What if my clients leave? What if I can't meet deadlines? He carried these storms like heavy stones. But when he practiced the tiger test, asking, "Is this happening now?" most storms vanished. He said, "I realized I was fighting enemies that only existed in my head." Science explains why. Studies show that worrying activates the same fight-or-flight response as real danger. The body floods with adrenaline and cortisol, even when no threat exists. This is why worry feels real, even when it is not. But mindfulness interrupts the cycle, teaching the body to stand down when the storm is imaginary. Here's a practice, the what-if flip. Each time a negative what-if arises, flip it into a positive. What if I fail becomes, what if I learn something new? What if I lose becomes, what if I grow? Flipping transforms fear into possibility. Carlos, the student, began doing this before applying to internships. Instead of thinking, "What if I'm rejected?" he told himself, "What if I gain valuable experience?" This shift gave him courage to apply widely, and eventually he succeeded. Another kind of storm is inherited worry. Sometimes we carry the fears of our parents, communities, or culture. These storms are not even ours, yet we live under their clouds. Emily realized this when she noticed she was repeating her mother's fears. Her mother always worried about money, even when the family was safe. Emily absorbed that worry and passed it to her own children. When she finally recognized the pattern, she chose to stop. She told her kids, "We will not live in storms that are not ours." Presence broke the cycle. Here's a reflection. Are you carrying storms that belong to someone else? Old warnings, cultural fears, inherited anxieties? Can you lay them down and live in the sky of your own present? Michael, the musician, once feared performing in public because of a childhood memory. A teacher had mocked him years ago, planting a storm in his mind. But when he faced the present, he realized that storm was long gone. By returning to now, he freed himself to play. Let's try a guided meditation. Close your eyes and imagine yourself holding a heavy umbrella under a sky that is clear. The umbrella represents your imagined storm. Slowly lower it, close it, and look up. See the blue sky of now. Whisper, "The storm is not here, the sky is clear." And here is your call to action. In the comments, write one "What if" storm you will flip into possibility this week. Your example might give someone else the courage to release their storm. There is wisdom in remembering that storms are teachers. Even when one does arrive, it is rarely as destructive as we feared. Often, it brings growth, resilience, or unexpected blessings. Tom, the Seattle doctor, once faced a malpractice lawsuit. He imagined his career ending, his reputation destroyed, his family ashamed. For weeks, he lived in a hurricane of fear. But when the case was reviewed, it was dismissed. The storm he feared never came. What remained was gratitude for his colleagues, his family, and the practice of mindfulness that carried him through. Science reminds us that our fears are often overestimated. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin found that people consistently predict future pain and loss as worse than it turns out to be. Our minds magnify storms. Reality is usually gentler. Here's a final practice for this section: the Clear Sky Journal. Each time a feared storm passes without arriving, write it down. At the end of the month, read the list. You will see how many storms dissolved into nothing. This record becomes proof against future worries. Sophia, the artist, kept such a journal. She filled pages with fears that never came true: shows not cancelled, critics not cruel, finances not collapsing. When doubt rose again, she opened the journal and smiled. The sky has been clear more often than stormy. Let's pause for a closing meditation. Close your eyes. Imagine dark clouds forming above you, your current worries. With each breath, see them thinning, breaking apart, revealing blue sky. Whisper softly, "Most storms never arrive. The sky is clear within me." And here is your final call to action for this section. In the comments, share one storm you will stop carrying today. Declare it publicly, not to shame yourself, but to set yourself free. Your words may help someone else lay down their own storm. This concludes Part 5. We have seen how the mind invents storms that rarely come, how science confirms that most fears are illusions, and how simple practices, journaling, breathing, flipping what-ifs, can free us from unnecessary suffering. In the next part, we will explore a profound truth: control blocks the flow of trust. We will see how clinging to control creates suffering, while trust opens the door to peace and connection. Take a slow breath. Release one storm. And when you are ready, step with me into Part 6. Control blocks the flow of trust. Control feels safe. We cling to it like a shield, believing that if we manage every detail, life will finally cooperate. But in truth, control is an illusion. The more tightly we grasp, the more peace slips through our fingers. Zen wisdom reminds us, clinging is the root of suffering. Think of a river. If you try to dam it with your hands, the water only escapes between your fingers. If you let it flow, the river nourishes the land. Control is like damming the river. Trust is letting it flow. David, the manager from Boston, lived this truth. He micromanaged every aspect of his team's work, emails, schedules, even how they arranged their desks. He believed control meant success. Instead, morale collapsed, conflicts rose, and productivity fell. When David discovered mindfulness, he began practicing release. He created space for his team to choose their own methods, to bring creativity. At first, it terrified him. But soon, trust replaced fear, and the team thrived. The illusion of control had been blocking the natural flow of trust. Science supports this. A study from MIT revealed that teams with high trust consistently outperform those built on micromanagement. Trust fuels innovation, resilience, and well-being. Control suffocates them. Here's a practice called the Circle of Influence. Draw 2 circles on paper. In the inner circle, write what you can control: your effort, your words, your choices. In the outer circle, write what you cannot control: other people's opinions, the economy, the weather. Each week, choose 3 things from the outer circle to release. Write them down and say, "I let this flow." Then, focus your energy on the inner circle. This practice gradually shifts your life from control to trust. Emily, the mother from Ohio, tried this with her children. She wrote down in the outer circle their choices, their friends, their grades. In the inner circle she wrote, "My love, my patience, my presence." By shifting focus, she released the storms of control and discovered deeper connection with her kids. Zen masters often compare control to gripping sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Trust is like holding the sand gently, allowing it to rest in your palm. Let's pause for a guided reflection. Close your eyes. Imagine a rope in your hands. Your grip is tight, your knuckles white. Feel the strain. Now slowly loosen your grip. Let the rope slide gently through your fingers. Whisper, "I release control. I trust the flow." Notice the relief in your body. Trust does not mean passivity. It means focusing on what matters, your actions, your presence, while letting go of what is beyond you. This is not weakness, it is wisdom. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one thing from your outer circle that you will release this week. By declaring it, you begin to loosen your grip and invite trust. Why is it so difficult to let go of control? Because control gives us the illusion of safety. We believe that if we can predict and manage every detail, life will not surprise us. Yet life is, by nature, unpredictable. The more we fight this truth, the more we suffer. Linda, the teacher from Florida, discovered this in her classroom. She demanded silence, order, and strict obedience. But the more she tried to control, the more chaos arose. Then she tried a different path, trust. She gave her students space to speak, to make mistakes, to share ideas. To her surprise, the class became more peaceful and engaged. She said, "When I let go of control, I gained true connection." Science echoes her experience. Research from Stanford University shows that psychological flexibility, trusting ourselves to adapt, is a stronger predictor of resilience than rigid control. Those who release control experience less stress and more joy. Here's a practice, the trust breath. Inhale and say silently, "I accept what I cannot control." Exhale and say, "I trust what will unfold." Repeat 3 times. This simple breath shifts the body from tension to openness. David, the Boston manager, used this before team meetings. Instead of entering with rigid agendas, he breathed and whispered, "I trust." Meetings flowed more smoothly, and his team offered creative solutions he had never imagined. Control also damages relationships. When we try to control loved ones, dictating their choices, behaviors, or feelings, we block the flow of trust. But trust is the soil in which love grows. Emily, the mother from Ohio, once tried to control every detail of her teenagers' lives. The more she controlled, the more they rebelled. Finally, she practiced release. She offered guidance, but with space for choice. Trust grew, and so did respect. Here's a reflection. Think of one relationship where control has created tension. Ask yourself, what would happen if I trusted more here? Notice how your heart softens at the thought. Zen reminds us that life itself is trustworthy. The seasons change, rivers flow, the sun rises, all without our control. Trusting life means aligning with this natural order instead of resisting it. Let's try a guided meditation. Imagine standing at the edge of a wide river. In your hands is a heavy stone, the weight of control. Feel its burden. Now imagine gently placing the stone in the river. Watch it sink and disappear. Whisper, "I release, I trust the flow." Feel the lightness in your hands, the freedom in your heart. And here is your call to action. In the comments, write one stone of control you are willing to release this week. It might be controlling a colleague, a child, or even yourself. By naming it, you begin to set it down. Control also shows up in how we relate to ourselves. Many of us try to control every aspect of our growth, demanding that we always succeed, never falter, never feel weak. But this harsh control suffocates self-compassion. True growth happens not through control, but through trust, trusting our capacity to learn, to adapt, to rise again. Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles, once demanded perfection from herself. Each mistake felt like failure, each slow day like proof she was inadequate. But when she practiced trusting the process, allowing herself to explore, to fail, to experiment, her creativity expanded. She said, "I realized my art didn't need control, it needed trust." Science supports this shift. Research at the University of Texas shows that self-compassion, which is rooted in trust, leads to greater motivation and achievement than self-criticism, which is rooted in control. When we trust ourselves, we thrive. Here's a practice, the trust statement. Each morning, look in the mirror and say, "I trust myself to handle today." Even if doubts remain, repeat it. Over time, the mind begins to believe what the heart already knows, that trust is stronger than control. Michael, the musician, began this ritual before concerts. Instead of obsessing about every mistake, he whispered, "I trust myself to play with heart." The result? His performances felt freer, more alive. Audiences responded not to his perfection, but to his authenticity. Control also affects how we face uncertainty. The future is unknown, yet we try to control it with endless planning and prediction. Of course, preparation is wise, but when planning becomes obsession, it becomes suffering. Carlos, the student from California, lived in this trap. He tried to control every detail of his career path, mapping 10 years ahead. But life did not follow his script. The more he tried to force it, the more anxious he became. When he learned to trust the process, taking one mindful step at a time, he discovered opportunities he never planned. Zen reminds us, do not seek to control the river, become the river. Here's a reflection. Where in your life are you gripping too tightly, trying to control what cannot be controlled? What would it feel like to trust instead? Science confirms the power of trust in uncertainty. A study at Berkeley showed that people with higher levels of trust report greater happiness and resilience during times of crisis. Trust doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it transforms how we face it. Let's try a guided meditation. Close your eyes. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a forest path. The path disappears into mist, you cannot see the end. Feel the urge to control, to demand certainty. Now take a breath and whisper, "I trust the path." Step forward, one step at a time. Notice how peace replaces fear when you trust. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one area of your life where you will replace control with trust this week. By declaring it, you strengthen your intention and inspire others to do the same. Control also shows up in how we relate to ourselves. Many of us try to control every aspect of our growth, demanding that we always succeed, never falter, never feel weak. But this harsh control suffocates self-compassion. True growth happens not through control, but through trust, trusting our capacity to learn, to adapt, to rise again. Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles, once demanded perfection from herself. Each mistake felt like failure, each slow day like proof she was inadequate. But when she practiced trusting the process, allowing herself to explore, to fail, to experiment, Her creativity expanded. She said, "I realized my art didn't need control, it needed trust." Science supports this shift. Research at the University of Texas shows that self-compassion, which is rooted in trust, leads to greater motivation and achievement than self-criticism, which is rooted in control. When we trust ourselves, we thrive. Here's a practice, the trust statement. Each morning, look in the mirror and say, "I trust myself to handle today." Even if doubts remain, repeat it. Over time, the mind begins to believe what the heart already knows, that trust is stronger than control. Michael, the musician, began this ritual before concerts. Instead of obsessing about every mistake, he whispered, "I trust myself to play with heart." The result? His performances felt freer, more alive. Audiences responded not to his perfection, but to his authenticity. Control also affects how we face uncertainty. The future is unknown, yet we try to control it with endless planning and prediction. Of course, preparation is wise, but when planning becomes obsession, it becomes suffering. Carlos, the student from California, lived in this trap. He tried to control every detail of his career path, mapping 10 years ahead. But life did not follow his script. The more he tried to force it, the more anxious he became. When he learned to trust the process, taking one mindful step at a time, he discovered opportunities he never planned. Zen reminds us, do not seek to control the river, become the river. Here's a reflection. Where in your life are you gripping too tightly, trying to control what cannot be controlled? What would it feel like to trust instead? Science confirms the power of trust in uncertainty. A study at Berkeley showed that people with higher levels of trust report greater happiness and resilience during times of crisis. Trust doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it transforms how we face it. Let's try a guided meditation. Close your eyes. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a forest path. The path disappears into mist, you cannot see the end. Feel the urge to control, to demand certainty. Now take a breath and whisper, "I trust the path." Step forward, one step at a time. Notice how peace replaces fear when you trust. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one area of your life where you will replace control with trust this week. By declaring it, you strengthen your intention and inspire others to do the same. Control also arises from fear of vulnerability. We grasp tightly because we are afraid of being hurt, rejected, or disappointed. But trust requires openness. And in that openness, deeper relationships and deeper peace are born. Emily, the mother from Ohio, once admitted she controlled conversations with her husband out of fear that if she didn't lead, he wouldn't care. But when she practiced listening and trusting, she discovered he was more loving than she had imagined. Her control had been blocking the intimacy she longed for. Science shows that vulnerability builds connection. Research by Dr. Brené Brown demonstrates that trust grows not from perfection or control, but from shared vulnerability. When we let go of control, we invite real human connection. Here's a practice, the trust dialogue. Choose someone close to you. Instead of controlling the conversation, simply say, "Tell me what's on your heart." Listen without fixing or steering. Notice how trust deepens when control steps aside. Michael, the musician from Nashville, tried this with his band. Instead of dictating rehearsals, he asked, "What do you feel we should play?" At first, it felt risky. But soon, the band created music richer than anything he could have controlled. Zen wisdom teaches, when you let go, you gain. Another form of control is self-image. We try to control how others see us, hiding flaws, polishing appearances, curating lives on social media. But this control traps us in anxiety. Trusting authenticity sets us free. Sophia, the artist, shared how she once hid her struggles behind a perfect facade. But when she began speaking honestly about her doubts and fears, she was surprised people respected her more. Control had built walls, trust built bridges. Science confirms this. Studies at the University of California show that authenticity increases well-being and strengthens relationships. Pretending drains energy, trusting who we are restores it. Here's a reflection. Where in your life are you trying to control how others see you? What would it feel like to trust that your real self is enough? Let's try a short meditation. Sit comfortably. Imagine holding a mask in your hands. It represents the control of self-image. Gently set the mask down beside you. Whisper, "I trust that who I am is enough." Breathe into that freedom. Control also blocks trust in timing. We want things to happen now, success, healing, change. But life has its own rhythm. When we force timing, we suffer. When we trust timing, peace returns. Carlos, the student, wanted instant results in his career. He pushed, worried, and tried to control outcomes. But when he trusted the timing, accepting that growth unfolds step by step, he found peace in the process. Zen reminds us, the flower blooms when it is ready, not when you demand it. So here is your call to action. In the comments, write one area where you will trust instead of control, whether it's a relationship, your self-image, or the timing of life. By naming it, you begin to practice the freedom of trust. Control also arises in our relationship with uncertainty about the future. We plan, we calculate, we worry, trying to control outcomes that are beyond us. But the future is not ours to command. It is a river that unfolds one bend at a time. John, the businessman from Texas, learned this during an economic downturn. He spent sleepless nights forecasting worst-case scenarios, rewriting strategies, demanding guarantees from his staff. Yet the economy moved in ways no plan could capture. When John finally accepted uncertainty, focusing only on daily steps, he could influence his stress eased. Trusting the process freed him from the prison of control. Science echoes this wisdom. A study at the University of Illinois showed that people who practice uncertainty tolerance experience lower anxiety and higher life satisfaction. In other words, trusting life's flow brings more peace than trying to control it. Here's a practice, the step-by-step ritual. Each morning, write down only the next 3 small actions you can take today. Resist planning the whole future. Whisper to yourself, "One step is enough." Emily, the mother from Ohio, tried this when overwhelmed by family worries. Instead of mapping her children's entire future, she wrote, "Cook dinner, help with homework, share laughter." These steps grounded her in trust. She said, "When I stopped controlling the future, I started living the present." Another form of control is over our emotions. We tell ourselves, "I must not feel anger, I must not feel sadness," but emotions are like weather, they come and go. Trying to control them only intensifies the storm. Trusting them to pass brings relief. Michael, the musician, once tried to suppress stage fright. The more he controlled it, the stronger it became. Finally, he trusted it, naming it as energy, using it to fuel his music. His fear transformed into presence. Science shows that emotional suppression increases stress and weakens health. But acceptance, trusting feelings without judgment, leads to resilience. Here's a practice, the emotion wave. When strong feelings arise, close your eyes and imagine surfing a wave. You don't control the wave, you ride it. Whisper, "This too will pass." Notice how trust carries you safely to shore. Control also appears in our spiritual lives. We demand answers from the universe. Why did this happen? When will things change? But trust invites surrender to mystery. It is resting in the unknown with faith. Sophia, the artist, practiced this during illness. Instead of controlling outcomes, she prayed, breathed, and trusted each day as it came. She said, "Surrender gave me more strength than control ever did." Zen teaches, to let go is to be carried. Let's pause for a meditation. Imagine yourself holding tightly to a rope tied to a rushing river. The strain exhausts you. Now imagine letting go, floating gently, carried by the current. Whisper, "I trust the flow." Feel the relief of release. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one emotion, one worry, or one plan you will stop controlling this week. By naming it, you take the first step toward trust. Control promises security, but it delivers stress. Trust feels risky, yet it delivers peace. This is the paradox Zen invites us to embrace. Tom, the doctor from Seattle, once confessed, "I thought control made me strong, but in truth, it made me brittle. Only when I trusted my team, my training, the flow of life did I find real strength." His story reminds us that trust is not weakness, it is courage. Science reinforces this. Research from Harvard Business Review found that workplaces with high trust report 74% less stress, 50% higher productivity, and far greater happiness among employees. Control drains, trust sustains. Here's a closing practice, the Trust Journal. Each night, write one moment when you trusted instead of controlled. It might be letting a loved one make their own choice, or letting yourself rest instead of forcing productivity. Over time, you will see that life continues to unfold even better when trust leads. Emily, the mother, shared how her journal revealed patterns. "Every time I trusted, my children grew. Every time I controlled, we clashed." Her journal became a mirror showing her the path to peace. Let's pause for a final meditation in this section. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly and whisper, "I release control." Exhale fully and whisper, "I trust the flow." Repeat 3 times. Feel the tension leave your body, replaced by calm. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one area, big or small, where you will practice trust this week. By declaring it, you strengthen the intention and inspire others. This concludes Part 6. We have learned that control is an illusion that blocks the natural flow of trust. We have seen how leaders, parents, artists, and friends find deeper peace when they release control. And we have practiced simple steps, trust breathing, trust journaling, open hands to bring this wisdom into daily life. In the next part, we will explore another secret of Zen. Letting go does not mean losing. Letting go creates space for growth, for creativity, and for new life to emerge. Take one more deep breath. Smile gently. And when you are ready, let us step together into Part 7. Letting go creates space for growth. Letting go is often misunderstood. Many believe it means giving up, losing something valuable, or becoming careless. But in Zen, letting go is not loss, it is liberation. It is creating space so that something new can arise. Imagine a cup filled to the brim with water. If you keep pouring, nothing new can enter. The cup will only overflow. But if you empty the cup, you create space for fresh water, for new possibilities. As the Zen saying goes, The usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness. Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles, lived this truth. She clung to her old style, afraid of losing fans if she changed. But when she finally let go, she discovered new creativity and reached audiences she never imagined. By releasing the old, she made space for growth. Science supports this. A UCLA study found that people who accept change and release rigid habits show higher levels of creativity and innovation. Letting go literally opens the brain to new connections. Here's a practice: the empty cup ritual. Each morning, hold an actual cup. Imagine it empty. Whisper, "Today I release what no longer serves me. Today I am open to what is new." This simple act trains the mind to welcome growth. Emily, the mother from Ohio, tried this practice when she struggled to let go of her children's childhood. She realized clinging to the past was preventing her from enjoying who her children were becoming. Each morning she held her cup and whispered, "I let go so I can love them as they are now." Her home filled with more joy and less tension. Letting go also applies to failure. Many of us clutch our mistakes, replaying them endlessly. But holding on blocks growth. When we let go of failure, we create space for learning. Carlos, the student, once failed an important exam. He carried shame like a heavy backpack. But when he finally released it, he realized the failure had taught him discipline and resilience. By letting go, he grew stronger. Zen reminds us, to let go is not to deny, but to accept. Acceptance dissolves resistance and makes room for transformation. Here's another practice: the stone release. Find a small stone. Hold it as you recall something you need to release: fear, regret, control. Then place the stone gently on the ground. Whisper, "I set this down." Notice the lightness in your hand and in your heart. Michael, the musician, used this ritual before concerts. He released fear of mistakes by placing a stone backstage. He said, "I walked on stage lighter, freer." The music flowed. Letting go created space for authentic performance. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one thing, big or small, you are ready to set down this week. It might be a regret, a fear, or an old story. By declaring it, you open space for growth. Letting go is not weakness. It is strength in its most refined form. Anyone can cling. Clinging requires no courage. But to release what no longer serves us, to step into the unknown with open hands, this requires great strength. David, the manager from Boston, discovered this when leading his team. He held on to outdated strategies, convinced they were the only way forward. His grip stifled innovation. When he finally let go, trusting his team to experiment, new ideas emerged. The company not only survived, but thrived. By releasing control, he created space for growth. Science supports this shift. Research at Harvard shows that leaders who practice adaptive letting go, releasing old methods when they no longer work, foster greater creativity and team success. Flexibility feeds growth. Here's a practice: the empty shelf. Choose one shelf, drawer, or digital folder. Clear it completely. As you do, whisper, "I make space for the new." Notice how releasing physical clutter mirrors releasing mental clutter. Sophia, the artist from Los Angeles, did this with her studio. She cleared one wall of old sketches she had clung to. The empty wall became a canvas for new visions. She said, "The emptiness felt scary at first, but then it became possibility." Letting go also heals relationships. Emily, the mother, once carried years of resentment toward her husband. She replayed every argument, clinging to past hurts. But when she chose to release resentment, not by denying pain, but by accepting it and moving forward, their marriage softened. She found that letting go of anger created space for love. Science confirms this. A study from the University of Miami found that forgiveness, essentially letting go, improves emotional well-being, lowers stress, and even strengthens the immune system. Letting go is medicine for the body and soul. Here's a reflection. What resentment or grudge are you still holding? What might grow if you set it down? Michael, the musician, once held bitterness toward a critic who mocked his early work. For years, that voice haunted him. But when he released it, he discovered freedom in his music again. He said, "The critic's voice was in my head, not in the room. When I let it go, silence returned." Let's try a meditation. Close your eyes. Picture yourself holding a heavy backpack. Inside are regrets, resentments, fears. Feel its weight. Now, imagine setting it down on the ground. Step forward without it. Whisper, "I let go, I grow." Notice the lightness in your step. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one backpack stone you are ready to release, be it a regret, an old fear, or a resentment. By sharing, you inspire others to lighten their load as well. Letting go also applies to identity. Many of us cling to old labels. I am the successful one, I am the failure, I am the caretaker, I am the victim. These identities may have once served us, but when we grip them too tightly, they limit who we can become. Growth requires loosening these labels. Carlos, the student from California, defined himself as bad at public speaking. He avoided every opportunity to present, fearing embarrassment. But one day, his professor invited him to speak briefly in class. He decided to let go of the old label. He said, "Maybe I can grow into something new." That moment began his journey toward confidence. Science supports this idea. Research in psychology shows that self-concept flexibility, the ability to release rigid self-labels, leads to greater resilience and personal growth. By letting go of "I am this," we create space for "I can become more." Here's a practice, the name release. Write down one label you carry, positive or negative, that feels too heavy. Whisper, "This is not the whole of me." Then tear or fold the paper, symbolizing release. Sophia, the artist, used this ritual when she realized she was clinging to the label perfectionist. She tore the word and said, "I am more than this." She felt lighter, more open to new ways of creating. Letting go also applies to possessions. We often cling to material things, believing they hold our security or worth. But possessions can weigh us down. When we release what we no longer need, we create space not only in our homes but in our hearts. Emily once kept boxes of her children's old clothes, unable to let them go. But when she donated them to families in need, she felt unexpected joy. She said, "I realized I wasn't losing memories, I was making space for generosity." Science confirms the benefits of decluttering. Studies from Princeton University show that physical clutter increases stress and decreases focus. Letting go of possessions reduces anxiety and boosts well-being. Here's a practice, the one-item rule. Each week, release one item you no longer need. As you let it go, whisper, "I create space for growth." Notice how lightness spreads with each release. Let's pause for meditation. Imagine your mind as a crowded room, filled with old objects, regrets, labels, clutter. Now picture yourself opening windows, carrying items out one by one. As the room empties, sunlight pours in. Whisper, I let go, I grow. And here is your call to action. In the comments, name one label, possession, or attachment you are ready to release. By sharing, you inspire others to clear their own rooms of the past. Letting go also applies to expectations. Much of our suffering comes from clinging to the way we think life should be. We expect careers to follow a straight path, relationships to meet every need, and health to remain perfect. When reality differs, we suffer. David, the manager from Boston, once expected constant growth in his business. When sales slowed, he panicked, imagining failure. But when he released the rigid expectation of always up, he discovered space for innovation. The business recovered in ways he hadn't planned. Zen wisdom says, let go of how you think life should be and embrace how it island. Science supports this. A study from the University of Denver found that couples who let go of unrealistic expectations report higher satisfaction and less conflict. Trust grows where control ends. Here's a practice, the expectation release. Write one expectation you hold tightly about work, love, or yourself. Whisper, I release this expectation, I open to what island. Notice how your body softens with the release. Emily, the mother from Ohio, tried this when her children chose paths different from what she imagined. She let go of the expectation that they would mirror her dreams. She said, when I stopped gripping, I began to see who they truly are. Letting go also creates space for forgiveness. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Forgiveness is not forgetting or excusing, it is releasing the weight of resentment. Michael, the musician, carried anger toward a bandmate who betrayed him years ago. He replayed the hurt daily. But when he chose to forgive, he said, it was like laying down a heavy stone I didn't realize I was carrying. Forgiveness created space for new collaborations. Science affirms this. Research at Stanford University found that forgiveness lowers blood pressure, reduces anxiety, and strengthens immune function. Letting go literally heals the body. Here's a meditation. Close your eyes. Picture someone you hold anger toward. See yourself carrying a heavy stone with their name. Now imagine setting it down beside a river, watching it sink. Whisper, I release you, I release myself. Sophia, the artist, did this with a critic who once mocked her art. She said, I thought forgiveness meant weakness, but when I let go, I felt stronger, freer. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one expectation, resentment, or burden you will release this week. By naming it, you open the door for others to release too. Letting go also applies to past regrets. We replay old mistakes again and again, hoping control over memory will change what has already happened. But the past cannot be rewritten, it can only be released. When we let go of regret, we create space for wisdom. Tom, the doctor from Seattle, once lived with regret over a misdiagnosis early in his career. Though the patient recovered, he punished himself for years. Finally, through mindfulness practice, he whispered, I cannot change that moment, but I can learn from it. Letting go transformed regret into compassion for himself and for others. Science supports this healing. Studies from the University of Rochester show that people who ruminate on regret experience higher levels of depression, while those who practice acceptance and release show greater resilience and hope. Here's a practice, the letter of release. Write a letter to your past self, forgiving them for one mistake. End with the words, I let you go, I grow from you. then fold the letter and set it aside as an offering of freedom. Emily, the mother from Ohio, wrote such a letter to herself for times she felt she failed her children. Tears flowed as she released regret. She said, "I felt lighter, as if I had stepped out of a storm into sunlight." Letting go also applies to attachments to success. When we cling to achievements, we trap ourselves in fear of losing them. But when we let go, success becomes a stepping stone, not a prison. John, the businessman, once clung to his company's reputation. Every mistake felt catastrophic. But when he loosened his grip, he discovered freedom to innovate. His company not only survived, but evolved. Zen teaches, "Do your work, then step back, the only path to serenity." Science echoes this wisdom. A study at the University of Michigan found that people who detach from rigid definitions of success report higher satisfaction and creativity. Letting go of status creates room for joy. Here's a meditation. Close your eyes. Picture yourself holding a trophy. It represents success you fear losing. Now imagine placing it on a shelf and walking away. Whisper, "I am more than my success. I am free." Michael, the musician, practiced this before major performances. He reminded himself, the music matters more than the applause. By letting go of outcome, he played with greater authenticity. Finally, letting go creates space for presence. When our hands are full of past regrets, future fears, and heavy expectations, we cannot hold the gift of now. Releasing opens our hands and hearts to the present. Sophia, the artist, summarized it beautifully. Letting go felt like loss, but it was really the gain of space, of peace, of possibility. Here's your call to action. In the comments, share one regret, one attachment, or one success you are ready to release. By naming it, you make space for growth in your own life and encourage others to do the same. Letting go also applies to relationships. Sometimes we cling to people who no longer walk the same path with us. We hold on out of fear of loneliness, fear of change, fear of emptiness. Yet clinging traps both us and them. Letting go creates space for healing, for freedom, for new connections. Emily, the mother from Ohio, once struggled to let go of a friendship that had turned toxic. She replayed old memories, convincing herself that things would return to the way they were. But when she finally released the friendship, she discovered peace. She said, "I didn't lose a friend. I gained room for healthier love." Science confirms this. Research from Wake Forest University shows that letting go of toxic relationships improves not only emotional health, but also physical well-being, lowering blood pressure and boosting immunity. Here's a practice, the open door visualization. Picture a closed door that represents a relationship or attachment you need to release. Imagine yourself opening the door, letting fresh air and light enter. Whisper, "I bless you, I release you, I open to new growth." Michael, the musician, once ended a partnership that drained his spirit. At first, it felt like failure. But soon, new collaborations emerged richer and more aligned with his values. He realized letting go was not the end, but the beginning. Another storm we hold is attachment to control over time. We cling to the past, mourn what is gone, or chase the future, desperate for it to arrive. But clinging to time blinds us to the gift of now. Sophia, the artist, shared how she once clung to her youth, fearing aging would erase her relevance. But when she released that fear, she discovered new depth in her art. She said, "Letting go of youth gave me space to embrace wisdom." Science echoes this truth. Studies on aging and mindfulness show that people who accept the passage of time with openness report higher life satisfaction and stronger resilience. Letting go of the clock creates room for peace. Here's a reflection. What part of time do you resist, the past you replay or the future you fear? Can you release it, even briefly, and stand in the present? Let's pause for a meditation. Close your eyes. Imagine holding a rope tied to the past in one hand and a rope tied to the future in the other. Feel the tension. Now gently release both ropes. Stand free, open, here. Whisper, I let go, I grow in now. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one relationship, one fear of time, or one old attachment you are ready to release. By naming it, you help create a community of growth and freedom. Letting go is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. When we release what no longer serves us, old habits, fears, resentments, we make room for something new: peace, creativity, compassion. Tom, the doctor from Seattle, reflected on this after years of carrying stress. He said, "When I finally let go of perfection, I found joy in simply serving. My patients didn't need a perfect doctor, they needed a present one." Letting go gave him space to become the healer he was meant to be. Science confirms this wisdom. Research from the University of California found that people who practice release, not clinging to possessions, expectations, or regrets, show higher overall well-being and stronger relationships. Here's a final practice for this section: the daily emptying. Each night, before sleep, close your eyes and imagine placing the day's worries, regrets, and attachments into a bowl. Whisper, I set this down. I make space for rest and renewal. This simple ritual trains the mind to release daily. Sophia, the artist, began this ritual during a stressful season. She said, "Each night I emptied my bowl. Each morning I woke lighter." Letting go created room for inspiration. Let's pause for a closing meditation. Picture yourself standing in a garden. In your hands is a bag of seeds, some healthy, some rotten. Feel the weight. Now imagine gently scattering only the healthy seeds into the soil and setting the rotten ones down. Whisper, I release what does not grow. I plant what brings life. Notice the piece of space created for new growth. And here is your final call to action for this part. In the comments, share one habit, belief, or burden you are ready to release tonight. By naming it, you open the soil of your life for something new to grow. This concludes part 7. We have seen that letting go is not loss, but liberation. From possessions to regrets, from relationships to expectations, release creates room for growth. Zen teaches us that the empty cup, the open hand, the cleared space, these are the foundations of wisdom and renewal. In the next part, we will step into an even deeper truth. You are not separate from life's flow. You are part of the great cosmic current. By surrendering control and letting go, you discover not emptiness, but connection with the whole. Take a breath. Smile gently. And when you are ready, let us step together into part 8. You are part of the cosmic flow. One of the deepest insights of Zen is this: you are not separate from life. You are not a stranger standing outside the universe trying to control it. You are part of its flow, its rhythm, its dance. Imagine an ocean wave. The wave rises, peaks, and falls back into the sea. Does the wave ever exist apart from the ocean? No, it is the ocean, expressing itself for a moment in time. In the same way, you are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, expressing itself as you. Michael, the musician from Nashville, discovered this truth through music. At first, he tried to control every note, every tempo, every detail of his performance. But when he finally surrendered and let the music carry him, something shifted. He said, "I wasn't playing the music anymore. The music was playing me." He had entered the flow. Science describes this as the state of flow. Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, found that when people are fully immersed in an activity, whether music, art, or sports, the brain quiets its inner critic, time seems to dissolve, and joy arises naturally. Flow is not control. Flow is participation in the larger movement of life. Here's a practice, the flow activity. Choose one simple task: walking, cooking, painting, even washing dishes. Instead of rushing or controlling, give yourself fully to the experience. Notice the textures, sounds, and rhythms. Let yourself dissolve into the activity until there is no you doing it, only the doing itself. Emily, the mother from Ohio, tried this while gardening. She said, "At first, I was just pulling weeds, but then I felt the soil in my hands, the sun on my face, the rhythm of breath. For a moment, there was no me, only the garden." She touched the cosmic flow in her backyard. Zen teaches, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop. This insight transforms anxiety. When we believe we are separate, we feel small, fragile, overwhelmed. But when we realize we are part of the whole, we feel supported, carried, infinite. Carlos, the student, once felt crushed by pressure to succeed. He said, "I thought I was alone, fighting against the world." But when he practiced meditation on interconnection, he realized, "I am not against the world. I am part of it." His anxiety softened into trust. Science echoes this. Studies on awe experiences show that when people feel connected to something larger than themselves, nature, art, or spirituality, their stress decreases and their sense of meaning increases. Connection heals what separation harms. Let's pause for meditation. Close your eyes. Imagine standing beneath a night sky filled with stars. Feel how vast it island. Now whisper, "I am not separate, I am part of this." Breathe deeply, letting yourself rest in that belonging. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one activity where you feel most in the flow, where you forget yourself and become one with the moment. By naming it, you inspire others to find their own doorway into the cosmic current. Sometimes, the sense of separation is strongest when life feels difficult. In suffering, we think, "Why me? I am alone in this struggle." But when we look deeper, we see that suffering itself connects us. Every person feels fear, loss, and hope. To suffer is not to be isolated, it is to share in the human flow. Emily, the mother from Ohio, once felt abandoned in her grief when her father passed away. She thought no one could understand her pain. But when she joined a meditation group and listened to others share their own losses, she realized she was not alone. She said, "Grief became lighter when I saw it flowing through all of us." Science confirms this. Studies on group mindfulness and support circles show that sharing pain in community reduces stress hormones and builds resilience. We heal not apart from others, but with them. Here's a practice, the shared breath. Sit quietly and imagine breathing with all beings on earth. Inhale, whisper, "We breathe in together." Exhale, whisper, "We breathe out together." Notice how loneliness dissolves into connection. Michael, the musician from Nashville, used this practice before concerts. Instead of feeling alone on stage, he imagined breathing with the audience. He said, "It wasn't me performing for them, it was all of us sharing one rhythm." Zen wisdom says, "The wave does not fight to be part of the ocean, it already island." Another doorway into the cosmic flow is nature. When we walk in the forest, sit by the ocean, or look at the stars, we remember our place in the whole. We are not separate observers, we are participants in the same great system. Carlos, the student, once felt overwhelmed by exams. His teacher invited him to spend 1 hour in silence at a park. He listened to birds, felt the wind, watched clouds drift. He said, "For the first time, I realized I wasn't a machine chasing grades, I was part of life itself." Science supports the healing power of nature. Studies at Stanford University show that even short walks in natural settings reduce anxiety and increase feelings of connectedness. Nature draws us back into the flow. Here's a practice, the nature merge. Go outside and focus on one element, a tree, a river, the sky. Instead of seeing it as separate, whisper, "This is me too." Feel the unity. Sophia, the artist, did this with the ocean. She said, "When I watched the waves, I realized they were my own breath. The tide was my heartbeat. In that moment, separation vanished." Let's pause for meditation. Close your eyes. Imagine roots growing from your feet deep into the earth, branches rising from your head into the sky. Whisper, "I am earth, I am sky, I am part of the whole." And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one place in nature where you feel most connected to the cosmic flow. By naming it, you remind others to return to the earth as well. Another way we forget our place in the flow is by clinging to the idea of the separate self. We think, "This is my body, my mind, my life, apart from others." But Zen reminds us that the self is not an island. Our breath, our food, our thoughts all arise in relationship. Tom, the doctor from Seattle, used to think of his work as an individual achievement. But during the pandemic, he saw clearly. His well-being depended on colleagues, patients, scientists, farmers who grew food, workers who kept hospitals running. He said, "I realized I am not separate. I am one thread in a vast web." Science calls this interdependence. Studies in social psychology show that people who recognize their interconnectedness report greater happiness and purpose. When we see ourselves as part of the flow, anxiety softens. Here's a practice, the web reflection. Sit quietly and name 5 people you depend on today. Maybe a farmer, a bus driver, a teacher, a loved one. Whisper, "We are connected, we are one flow." Notice gratitude rising. Emily, the mother, did this with her children. They wrote down all the people who helped their dinner appear on the table, from grocers to farmers to truck drivers. She said, "My kids saw for the first time how vast the web of life really island." Zen wisdom teaches, when you realize you are part of the whole takes care of you. Another doorway into flow is creativity. When we create, whether art, music, or even a conversation, we step into something larger than ourselves. Creativity is not me forcing, it is life flowing through me. Sophia, the artist, described painting one evening. The brush moved as if on its own. I wasn't creating. Creation was happening through me. This is the cosmic flow at work. Science on creativity supports this. Neuroscience studies show that during peak creativity, the brain's self-referential networks quiet down. The I steps aside and flow takes over. Here's a practice, the creative channel. Choose any creative act: drawing, humming, journaling. Instead of judging, simply let it flow. Whisper, "This is not mine. This is life moving through me." Michael, the musician, played this way on stage. He said, "The best concerts were the ones where I forgot myself. I became the music, and the music became me." Let's pause for meditation. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself as a river. Feel the current move through you. Whisper, "I do not push the flow, I am the flow." Rest in that truth. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one moment when you felt connected to something larger than yourself through nature, creativity, or community. By naming it, you help others notice their own experiences of flow. Letting yourself enter the flow does not mean losing individuality. It means realizing your individuality is one expression of the whole. Just as each leaf is unique yet part of the tree, each of us is distinct yet inseparable from the cosmic current. David, the manager from Boston, once feared that if he surrendered to the flow, he would lose his leadership identity. But when he stopped forcing outcomes and began trusting collaboration, he discovered his role more clearly than ever. He said, "I realized leadership wasn't about control. It was about being a conduit for the team's flow." Science supports this. Studies on collective intelligence show that groups function best when individuals contribute authentically while remaining attuned to the larger system. Flow emerges not from domination, but from harmony. Here's a practice: the tree meditation. Sit quietly and imagine yourself as a leaf on a tree. Whisper, "I am unique, yet I am part of the whole." Feel the nourishment of roots, the support of branches, the movement of wind. Notice the peace of belonging. Emily, the mother, did this meditation with her children. She said, "They stopped fighting to prove who was right. They saw themselves as leaves on one tree. The household grew more peaceful." Zen wisdom says, "When the self disappears, joy appears." Another way to touch the cosmic flow is through service. When we serve others, we step beyond the small self into the larger self. Service is the river flowing through us, nourishing those around us. Tom, the doctor, found renewal in service. He said, "When I focus on myself, I feel small and anxious. When I focus on helping patients, I feel expansive and calm. Service connects me to the flow." Science confirms the benefits of service. Studies at Harvard show that volunteering reduces depression, increases life satisfaction, and even lengthens lifespan. Service immerses us in the current of life. Here's a practice: the small service. Each day, do one act of kindness: a smile, a kind word, a helping hand. Whisper, "Through service, I join the flow." Notice how even the smallest act connects you to something greater. Sophia, the artist, began offering free art workshops for children. She said, "I thought I was giving, but really I was receiving the joy of connection, the energy of community." Service opened her to the cosmic flow. Let's pause for meditation. Close your eyes. Picture yourself as a river. See how the river does not drink its own water. It flows outward, nourishing fields and villages. Whisper, "I flow, I give, I belong." And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one small act of service you will do this week to connect with the flow. By sharing, you encourage others to enter the same current. Another way to realize your place in the cosmic flow is through silence. In silence, the boundaries of the small self begin to dissolve. We notice that thoughts, sensations, and feelings all arise from the same great space. We are not separate from it, we are it. Michael, the musician, used to fear silence. He filled every moment with noise, practice, or distraction. But when he began sitting in silent meditation, he discovered that silence was not empty. It was full of life, full of presence, full of connection. He said, "Silence was the first time I heard the universe singing through me." Science confirms silence's power. Researchers in Finland found that silence restores the nervous system more effectively than music or conversation. Just 2 minutes of silence lowers blood pressure and deepens breathing. In silence, we return to the flow. Here's a practice, the 2-minute silence. Twice a day, pause all activity. Sit in silence. Whisper, "I am the flow, I rest in the whole." Notice how even brief silence reconnects you. Emily, the mother from Ohio, practiced this at home. She taught her children to sit quietly before meals, breathing in silence. She said, "It became the most peaceful part of our day. We remembered that we were more than schedules, we were part of life itself." Zen wisdom says, "Silence is the language of the cosmos, all else is translation." Another entryway into flow is gratitude. Gratitude dissolves the illusion of separation by reminding us of all we receive from the world around us. Every meal, every breath, every friendship is a gift of the flow. Carlos, the student, once kept a gratitude journal. Each night he wrote 3 things he was thankful for. He said, "I realized my life was overflowing with gifts I had ignored. Gratitude made me feel carried by the flow instead of struggling against it." Science shows that gratitude rewires the brain. A study at UC Davis found that people who practice gratitude daily have stronger immune systems, lower stress, and deeper joy. Gratitude places us directly in the stream of connection. Here's a practice, the cosmic thank you. Each morning, thank one aspect of the universe, a tree, the air, the sun, even your own body. Whisper, "Thank you for carrying me in the flow." This simple act awakens belonging. Sophia, the artist, painted a canvas of things she was grateful for: the ocean, her family, her breath. She said, "Each brushstroke reminded me I am part of something infinite." Let's pause for meditation. Close your eyes. Place a hand on your heart. With each inhale, whisper, "I receive." With each exhale, whisper, "I give thanks." Breathe until gratitude fills you like sunlight. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one thing you are grateful for today that reminds you of the flow. By naming it, you invite others to remember their own blessings. Another path into the cosmic flow is acceptance of impermanence. Everything in the universe moves, shifts, and transforms. Seasons change, rivers bend, stars are born and die. When we resist this truth, we suffer. When we accept it, we rest in the flow. Tom, the doctor from Seattle, once resisted impermanence. He wanted his health, his family, his career to remain exactly as they were. But illness in his community reminded him that nothing is fixed. At first, this felt terrifying. Later, he said, "When I embraced change as part of life, I stopped clinging. Impermanence became my teacher." Science echoes this teaching. Studies on resilience show that people who accept impermanence cope better with stress, grief, and transition. Acceptance doesn't remove pain, but it softens resistance, allowing healing to begin. Here's a practice, the leaf meditation. Sit quietly and imagine a leaf floating down a stream. It drifts, turns, disappears from sight. Whisper, "Everything flows, I flow too." Let yourself rest in this rhythm. Emily, the mother, shared this with her children when their dog passed away. She said, "Life is like the leaf. We come, we go, but the river continues." It brought peace to her grieving family. Zen wisdom says, "Because all is passing, all is precious." Another doorway into flow is compassion. When we open our hearts to the suffering of others, we dissolve the illusion of separation. Compassion reminds us that their pain is our pain, their joy our joy. David, the manager from Boston, once competed fiercely, seeing colleagues as rivals. But when one colleague fell ill, David visited him daily, bringing food and comfort. He said, "I realized competition was an illusion. What matters is care." Compassion carried him into the flow of humanity. Science confirms compassion's power. Neuroscience studies show that compassionate action activates the brain's reward centers, increasing well-being and reducing stress. Helping others literally helps us. Here's a practice, the compassion breath. Inhale, whisper, "May I be free from suffering." Exhale, whisper, "May all beings be free from suffering." Repeat, letting compassion ripple outward. Sophia, the artist, painted portraits of strangers in her city, offering them as gifts. She said, "With each face, I felt less separate. We were all part of one vast story." Let's pause for meditation. Picture the world in your heart. With each breath, imagine light flowing from you to every being. Whisper, "We are one flow, we are one heart." And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one act of compassion you will offer this week, big or small. By sharing, you invite others to expand the flow of care. To live in the cosmic flow is to trust that you belong. You are not here by accident. You are a note in the great symphony, a star in the vast sky, a wave in the endless ocean. When you remember this, fear loosens and peace returns. Michael, the musician, captured this truth after a performance. He said, "I thought I had to carry the music alone, but when I let go, I realized I was part of the orchestra of life. The universe was carrying me." Science points to the same reality. Research on awe experiences shows that feeling part of something vast increases humility, reduces stress, and deepens joy. The more we sense the flow, the freer we feel. Here's a practice, the star meditation. Go outside at night. Look up at the stars. Whisper, "I am not separate. I am part of this." Let awe wash over you. Feel how belonging dissolves loneliness. Emily, the mother, did this with her children. She said, "When we looked at the stars, my kids stopped arguing. We were silent, together, part of the same sky." Zen wisdom says, "To know you are part of the whole is to come home." Another doorway into the flow is surrender. Surrender does not mean defeat. It means resting in trust. It means saying, "I do not need to push the river, I am the river." Sophia, the artist, surrendered when she stopped forcing inspiration. She said, "When I let go of needing to create, creativity returned on its own." Surrender became her doorway into the cosmic current. Science confirms surrender's strength. Studies on acceptance-based therapy show that people who surrender to life's flow experience less anxiety and more resilience. Here's a closing meditation for this part. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly and whisper, "I belong." Exhale fully and whisper, "I am the flow." Repeat 3 times. Feel yourself dissolve into peace. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share one moment this week when you will practice remembering the flow through nature, silence, gratitude, or surrender. By naming it, you commit to living as part of the great current. This concludes Part 8. We have seen that you are not separate from life, but an expression of it. Through nature, silence, service, gratitude, compassion, and surrender, we enter the cosmic flow. And in that flow, we discover peace. In the next and final part, we will gather all the teachings, the garden of the mind, the strength of flexibility, the peace of the present, the truth that most storms never arrive, the freedom of trust, the space created by letting go, and the cosmic flow itself. Together, they will form a path back to peace. Take a deep breath. Smile softly. And when you are ready, let us step into Part 9. We have walked a long journey together. From the garden of the mind, to the strength of flexibility, to the peace of the present moment. We have learned that most storms never arrive, that control blocks the flow of trust, that letting go creates space for growth, and that we are part of the cosmic flow itself. Each step has been a reminder. Peace is not somewhere far away. Peace is here, now, in the way we live each breath. Let us pause and reflect. Which part of this journey touched you most deeply? Was it the image of the mind as a garden where each thought is a seed? Or the teaching of bamboo bending with the wind? Was it the reminder that storms are often only in our imagination? Or the freedom that comes when we release control? Anna, the office worker in Chicago, found her peace in the teaching of the present moment. She said, "When I stopped chasing the future and sat with now, my anxiety melted like ice in the sundae." David, the manager from Boston, discovered strength in trust. "When I let go of control, my team blossomed, and so did I." Sophia, the artist, found creativity in letting go. "When I emptied my cup, inspiration filled it." And Michael, the musician, found connection in the cosmic flow. "When I stopped trying to control the music, I realized the music was carrying me." Science, too, has walked with us on this path. Harvard studies showed us how mindfulness lowers stress. Stanford research revealed the power of flexibility. Yale and Berkeley reminded us that presence, gratitude, and awe reshape the brain and heal the heart. Modern knowledge confirms ancient wisdom. Peace comes when we align with the flow of life. Here's a practice for this final stretch, the 7-day journey. For the next week, choose one teaching each day. Day 1. Plant seeds of positive thought in the garden of your mind. Day 2. Practice flexibility like bamboo in the wind. Day 3. Return to the present, letting peace be found here. Day 4. Notice which storms are only in your imagination. Day 5. Release control and choose trust. Day 6. Let go of something that no longer serves you. Day 7. Rest in the cosmic flow, remembering you belong. 1 week, 7 practices, a new beginning. Emily, the mother from Ohio, tried this rhythm with her family. Each night they reflected on the day's lesson. She said, "It was like planting a new garden in our home. Peace grew one day at a time." Zen wisdom reminds us, peace is not the destination, peace is the path. And so, dear friend, I invite you, step onto this path. Not tomorrow, not someday now. Choose one practice today and let it carry you. Here is your call to action. In the comments, share which practice you will begin with this week. By naming it, you give it life not only for yourself, but as inspiration for others walking this path with you. As we gather these teachings, notice how each one is not separate, but connected like beads on a single thread. The mind as a garden shows us that our inner world creates our outer world. Flexibility reminds us that strength lies in bending, not in breaking. The present moment reveals peace that has been waiting all along. The lesson of storms teaches us not to suffer twice, once in imagination and once in reality. Trust flows when we release control. Letting go makes space for growth. And the cosmic flow invites us home, reminding us that we are never separate. Think of Anna, who released her grip on the future. Of David, who discovered that trust can build more than control ever could. Of Emily, who chose presence over fear. Of Sophia, who allowed creativity to bloom in emptiness. Of Michael, who let music carry him into oneness. These stories are not theirs alone, they are mirrors for your own journey. Science has confirmed what Zen has whispered for centuries. Peace is natural, belonging is real, connection is healing. Cortisol lowers, the heart slows, the immune system strengthens not through struggle, but through release. When we stop resisting the flow supports us. Here's a reflection practice. Close your eyes and review the 7 teachings. Which one do you need most right now? The garden of thoughts, the bamboo of flexibility, the stillness of the present, the wisdom of storms, the trust that comes from release, the space of letting go, or the belonging of the cosmic flow. Let your heart choose one. That is your practice for today. Carlos, the student, did this at the end of his semester. He said, "I thought I needed 10 lessons, but really, I just needed one at a time. When I practiced that one fully, peace came." Zen wisdom says, "The journey of 1,000 miles is one step. The journey to peace is one breath." Let's pause for meditation. Inhale slowly and whisper, "I walk the path." Exhale fully and whisper, "The path is peace." Repeat 3 times. Feel how the journey and destination merge into one. And here is your call to action. In the comments, share the one teaching you will carry forward today. Not all 7, not all at once, just one. By focusing on one, you water the seed that will grow into a tree of peace. As we come to the end of this 4-hour journey, remember, peace is not a distant mountain to climb. It is the ground beneath your feet, the breath in your lungs, the stillness within your heart. You do not need to chase it, you need only to return to it. Emma, the nurse from Atlanta, carried these teachings through the hardest days of the pandemic. Exhausted, burned out, and afraid, she turned to the 7 practices one by one. She planted positive thoughts, bent like bamboo, returned to the present, released imaginary storms, trusted her team, let go of what drained her, and remembered her place in the flow of life. She said, "These teachings didn't remove the storm outside. They gave me calm within. They gave me back my joy." Science and Zen agree. Transformation does not come from adding more. It comes from letting go of illusions, of fear, of separation. In release, we find renewal. Here's a closing practice, the river of peace. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself standing by a wide river at dawn. In your hands are the burdens you have carried, worries, regrets, control, fear. Place them gently in the water. Watch as the river carries them away. Whisper, "I let go, I am carried, I am peace." Breathe deeply, resting in the flow. Zen wisdom says, life is a river. Do not push it, let it carry you home. So here is your final call to action. Take one teaching from this journey and live it today. Share in the comments what you will practice, whether it is planting seeds of thought, bending with the wind, breathing in the present, naming storms, releasing control, letting go, or flowing with the cosmos. Your words may be the light someone else needs. And if this journey has touched you, I invite you, subscribe for more teachings of mindfulness and peace. Share this video with a friend who longs for calm in a restless world. Together, we can create ripples of peace that spread far beyond ourselves. Dear friend, peace is already within you. Carry it gently, practice it daily, and let it guide you home.